Good evening, everyone, and welcome to your Rangers Review Transfer Deadline Day live show as we kick off the final few hours of the transfer window. We'll look back at the Rangers business in January and, of course, today, the start of February. We'll look at the incomings and the outgoings as well. It's a marathon show. Myself and Chris Jack for the first hour, folks. Will be joined by Stevie Clifford, who'll join us for a bit, and then Jonny and Joshua will join us later on as well. If you want to get your comments in, please do so. I know that many of you have already fired your comments in. Not best pleased at the lack of action, it's fair to say. Chris, how's it going? Has it been a good day for you? How's your day been?
The days almost summed up the month. I think it's been one of these. It's been a difficult day. It's been a difficult month. I know we've done a lot of the shows over the course of the last few weeks, Eric. But the transfer window, it started before it even started, because I think for a long time there's been a lot of build up. People really keen for announcements to be made. And as far as I'm aware, it's now past 9 o'clock, so Rangers should have a new signing. Just check the club socials, but the deal for Cortez, as we said a couple of days ago, it has been completed. He's a Rangers player, and as I speak, Rangers have just confirmed that. A statement on the club Twitter says the Rangers are delighted to announce the signing of Oscar Cortez from RC Longs. Cortez signs a loan deal until the end of the season with an option to buy in the summer, subject to international clearance. So there we have the next one in. Rangers have their third signing, and I've got a piece on the website which will be out just shortly, where you can read all about Cortez, his rise, his career in Colombia, his career in France. It's been a fairly short-lived one, and also what Rangers can expect to see from him over the coming months. So go and check that piece out, obviously, after you've watched the entirety of our Deadline Day video.
Yeah, absolutely. Just when you're speaking there, Chris, I was still tuned in, but I noticed that the Rangers have posted a video of Cortez. He will take the number 16 jersey, and he may make his debut. Of course, we'll find out tomorrow when Philippe Clement conducts his press conference. We'll hear what he has to say about the January and, of course, the February business in this window. Excited to see him in action. So Oscar Cortez, as Chris says, folks, is done, is completed. So Rangers do have their third acquisition of the winter transfer window. A lot of folks getting in touch. Big hello and welcome to a number of you who have joined as YouTube members as well. Michael, welcome aboard, buddy. James has also joined, as has John as well. So welcome aboard, guys. It's fantastic to have your support. Barry Thompson says, good evening, folks. What is the yellow tie thing about? I was asked to sport a yellow tie. You can see there, the mic's just hiding it a little bit there. This is a Champions League tie, no less, as well. Special tie from season 97-98. So I'm sporting the yellow tie. You don't have a yellow tie, I believe, Chris.
No, it's not. It's not colour that's in my wardrobe. And by the time I found out that we're going for the yellow ties, I've not had enough time to get myself down to the shops. I've been too busy on the phone all day to go and run down to the local shop and get myself one. So you're looking dapper, as the comments say. You're very much leading the way. But as the case, it's always you're the Jim White figure who's leading the coverage. Myself and Josh and Johnny, we're just the mere mortals who are doing the padding for the next 3 hours. So we'll let you lead the way. As difficult a month as it's been for us, having to chase these stories and talk about them. You're the man who has had to oversee 31 days of comments, of people asking for strikers, or people asking for this. So it's been a fine effort all round.
Yeah, Death Surf says, evening, troops. Nice tie, Derek. Should have had the Namucci top on with it. I had that on this morning, buddy. I think that would have been a bit too much. The Hamid Namucci Champions League jersey and the yellow tie. But the tie is being donned this evening. So Oscar Cortez, folks, is in. A lot of comments, so Chris, as we know, when it comes to Rangers, it's all about who is next. Now, Rangers pretty much all window have kept their cards close to their chest. We've not really found out about targets until late on, before they were announced. Cortez came to light over the weekend, last weekend, and we've just been waiting for that one just to be signed and sealed. It has been done now. He joins Mohamed Diamandi and Fabio Silva in the door. Will we get one more in, do you think, before the window closes? That is the question. There's not been any noise all day about a potential target. I've seen there's a lad at Bristol City that was knocked down pretty sharpish. Should we expect any surprises, Chris, about incomings?
I don't want people to turn off and to go to their beds, but I believe Rangers are finished for the night. They're finished for the January window. Three signings are all they're going to do. So Rangers business is done for the night, done for the window. The manager seems pleased with what's been done. It's obviously the first window of the new football board structure. It's the first window, obviously, for Clement, the first window for Niels Coppen. I think the signing of Fabio Silva, even before the window opened, was a real signal of intent early on. It was a good move for Rangers to get done. Diamandi, I think, is really interesting in terms of his profile. I think really interested and looking forward to seeing what he brings over the coming years. And Cortez, not someone I know a lot about. I had a chance to look into him, a chance to learn a bit more about him over the last couple of days. But again, I think someone who good profile, potentially a lot of improvement there, potentially a good sell-on fee for Rangers down the line. I know over the next couple of hours we're going to have a lot of comments on strikers, a lot of comments on Shankland and whatever else. But I think the deals that Rangers have done, they seem happy with them. They're pleased with them. They are more than content with the business that has been done. As my phone continues to light up here, but they are happy with what's been done. But for all those who are expecting one final win before 11:30, I hate to be the bearer of bad news once again, but it's not happening.
Kit says, bedtime then, bye. I don't blame you, buddy. I was getting messages incidentally throughout the day asking what's happening, if I knew anything. Jeep, who's up at 4 a.m. In the morning. It'd be good to have you tuning in, Jeep, but I do not blame you if you need to get to your kit, buddy. Craig K says, just diverting slightly, what's the red feather for, Derek? That is just over on my far side. It's just a bit of decoration. That is that the wife's doing, buddy, not mine. And Denzel says, everyone waiting to see Chris checking messages on his phone. I'm sure it's absolutely red hot this moment in time, Chris. If we hear anything, folks, you'll hear it first on the show this evening, whether there might be any more incomings. But the likelihood is Rangers' business is done. Outgoing wise, just before Oscar Cortez was announced, Chris, we had the announcement that Adam Devine has departed the club on loan. He is heading to Lanarkshire to sign. He's signed for Motherwell until the end of the season. Good opportunity for him. I did say, I think I've said in many videos now, that he has to be playing regular games. It's no use him just sitting idle, really. He's too good for the B team. Can't really break into that Rangers first team. I think it's a good opportunity for him.
I think it is, because I know he's someone who has come up over the last couple of days. People have been asking where he is and what the future holds for him. It's perhaps not the. I think when the Rangers Twitter account finally burst into life about an hour or so ago, I don't think it was the one everyone was hoping for. But the Devine one has been on the go earlier on. We actually had that story this morning. It was between Motherwell and Kelly for that particular deal. It's Devine that's obviously made that call, and he'll spend the second half of the season at Fir Park. I think they're short of options in that area of the field. So I think it's a good move for him. It had to be a Premiership loan. I think there was no point in going down to the Championship. Not really going to learn that much from him being at that level. So I think he's going into a side who have had some difficult times this season. But I think it's a real chance for him to go play a good bit of football, hopefully, and then who knows? It's all about, as Ross McCausland has shown this season, being in the right place at the right time, depending on injuries, form, any other availability issues. So I think there's definitely reasons there for Devine not to see this as the end of his career. But if he is going to have a Rangers career, it really starts now. It has to kickstart over the next 6 months.
Yep, we wish Penguin Boy all the best in his move to the Steelmen. I'm sure that he'll do well over there. Big fan of Adam Devine. Not quite happening for him at Rangers. I did think he would get an opportunity when Michael Beale originally took over. And of course, Borna was away with Croatia at the World Cup. Ridvan was injured and he was playing over in left back and he was doing particularly well. But he's not going to take over from James Tavernier, who's a machine over on that right-hand side, and on the left, Rangers well stacked. So I think that is a good move all round. If there are any other outgoings, you'll be the first to be let known of that. Jose Cifuentes is one. I'm not entirely sure if that is complete yet, Chris. We were expecting that move to Brazil to go through to Cruzeiro. We believe an initial loan, but they were looking for a permanent deal there. I think Rangers happy to offload Cifuentes. I did see reports that emerged from Brazil which suggested that Sunderland were keeping an eye on him as well. Of course, Michael Beale was instrumental in bringing him to Ibrox. But Cifuentes, is that one we should expect to see go through before the window closes?
Potentially not before our window closes, but the Brazilian window is open after ours. So I think that's definitely still a live one. That's one that's I would imagine will go through in due course. I think Cifuentes he's fallen down the pecking order. It's safe to say, certainly since Diamandi came in, certainly since Philippe Clement came in. Almost it's a move. It almost sums up Rangers recruitment in the summer. A lot of hype, a fair bit of money, but not a lot of return. It's just not worked out. It's not caught fire the way that all parties hoped that it would do. I think it's probably best that he moves on. I know there has been interest in him over the last couple of days or so, but it does look like Cruzeiro is the most likely destination for him. But I said that the Brazilian window is open after ours closes within the next couple of hours or so now. So that's one that doesn't have to be done tonight, but we do expect it to be done. In terms of other outgoings, obviously, I'm sure we'll talk fairly extensively about Ridvan and the left back situation over the course of the show, and Jack Butland is the two main ones. There's been sustained interest in Ridvan over the course of the window. He became almost the unexpected story of the window. And there's so much we spoke so much about the middle to front and strikers and attacking players, but Ridvan became one of the more pertinent talking points because there was then the hefty deal that came into play. Rangers linked with a series of left backs over the course of the window, all of which were knocked down at various stages. So again, I'm sure that's something that we'll either ourselves or Josh and Jonny will come on to speak about later on. But I think there's been sustained interest in Ridvan. That's another move that Rangers have managed to fend off. Manager was keen to keep him as part of the squad for the second half of the campaign. That's the case. I think he's very much first choice left back now. I think Barisic will find it difficult to get that jersey back, and I think it was really important that Rangers held on to Ridvan. It was a risk bringing another left back in, certainly someone of Hefty's profile. Then relying on him getting up to speed and settling, and there's various different options there. So I think it's for the best that Rangers have been able to fend off that interest from Turkey in Ridvan. And the Jack Butland one is probably the easiest decision that Rangers will make all window.
Booted out that approach
for quite some time. No danger that Jack Butland was going to be allowed to leave. Rangers were very, very firm in that. I think, as we said the other day there, come the summer, different conversation, different situation. But I think it's not right now. That would have been almost giving up on the title race. I know there's issues at the other end of the pitch. Again, I'm sure as we'll come on to. But Rangers simply could not have afforded to let Jack Butland go in. Again, that they've managed to fend that one off at the pass, thankfully.
Yeah, just on yesterday, folks, if you aren't aware, Applewell will retain the player until the end of the season. The deal is off for this window. Rangers can get him in the summertime, I believe, for nothing. They can go and get him from Fluminense over in Brazil, but he will not be arriving in this window. We discussed this on the morning show with Joshua, Chris. That tells me that unless there's a sensational offer that comes in for Ridvan Yilmaz, then it will be a Borna Ridvan, 2 left backs until the end of the season. Quite happy about that because, Ridvan has come into a good run of form at this moment in time. He's playing games regularly now, which it hasn't quite happened for him since he arrived. He has been plagued with injuries, of course. He is the number 1 left back for Rangers. He just offers more dynamism than Borna does. Don't get me wrong, I think Borna has been a great servant to the club, and I'll be surprised if he gets offered a new deal, that's for sure. I think he'll be one of a number of players that will depart in the summer, but I'm quite content with the left-back situation.
I think I've been surprised by Ridvan over the last couple of weeks. I think I've been clear over the last couple of seasons that I don't really see how he was going to be the natural success at left back. I think he has been impressive over the last couple of weeks, but I still have that nagging doubt of, is he robust enough? Is he able to play the number of games that Barisic, to his credit, has been? But you look at Tav on the other side, it's a relentless streak of never missing training, never missing games, turning up, cup games, league games, European games, handling everything. And if Rangers are going to, I think, do a bit of work on that defence over the course of the summer, if you could have a left back that's as robust and reliable as Tav, it gives you a real foundation there. You know how those areas of the side are going to operate. You know you can rely on them every single week, and that then allows money to be spent on sorting the centre of that defence. I think Barisic, I know he splits opinion amongst quite a lot of the fans. He's a guy who I always like dealing with. I think he's good to speak to. He always stops in the mix zone, which gets him brownie points. But in terms of his performances, it has been mixed of late. I don't think this has been a great. I don't think it's been a great season for him overall. No. And you sometimes just get that vibe with players that they're coming to the natural end of their Rangers careers. I think we saw that last season with Ryan Kent, with Alfredo Morelos, even guys who are not retiring, likes of Alan McGregor. You sometimes just feel that players are coming to the end of their natural time, and it would be best for all parties if it moved on. Barisic, he's been here for 55, been here for the Scottish Cup, League Cup. He's played in a European final, so I think there's lots for him to look back on and be proud of his time at Rangers. But I think it was probably best for all parties that he decides to move on. Ridvan then becomes interesting. Do Rangers see him as the natural successor? Do they put their faith in him, or is he one of the assets within the squad that you can potentially move on and potentially get a bit of money for? So I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case. So there's been this late flurry of interest in Ridvan. Looked for a long time as if he would be allowed to move on. I do wonder if Rangers had been able to get that hefty move over the line, if that would have changed their thinking on Yilmaz. That's all kind of fallen into place. Those dominoes have fallen in the last couple of days of the window. It's just become a bit tight for time Rangers wise, and it's not really suited. So as I say, Ridvan stays, Barisic stays, but I think we will see a bit of business in that area of the pitch come the end of the season.
Yeah. Right, let's get so many comments coming in. First of all, I know many of you watch us on YouTube may not be subscribers to the website, so I've bunged the link in the comment section if you want to subscribe to the Rangers Review website. Just click that link. We do have a couple of deals on, £18 for a year or £4 for 4 months, and it gets you access to the great, excellent content on there from Chris, Joshua, Stevie Clifford, who'll join us later on as well, and myself there as well. So do click the link if you're thinking about signing up to the website. Right, let's get to some of the comments coming in. Best of British joins us on our YouTube members Q&A earlier. It says, Derek, after the morning briefing in the Q&A, I am here for the big one. Wife is here too. Well done, and selling the show to your missus, buddy. So it's good to have you both tuning in on this Thursday evening. And Matthew Ross, also happy we're on, Chris. He says, thanks for doing this, guys. Getting out of watching EastEnders with the missus. So there's only one show in town, of course. And Nevitt says, Derek now trying to entertain for 3 hours. No mean feat. I know it was similar to the transfer deadline day show back in the summer when Rangers did much of the business before the deadline day, but we did manage to make it through the show, so I'm sure we'll do likewise here. Just a reminder, folks, myself and Chris on for the first hour. Stevie Clifford will then be joining us, and then Joshua and Jonny as well, so plenty of chat to come our way. And if you want to get your comments in, I know that many of you are already commenting. Please do so. We'll get through as many as we possibly can. Louis Martin is kindly donated to the channel. Thank you, buddy. Cantmell leading the line in Diamandi at number 10, he says. And Jack Delad as well, just on the transfer business in the window. Thanks for the donation, buddy. It says, folk moaning about the board. Behave yourselves. 3 starting players in January is a good window. Is it a good window, do you think, Chris? Or will time tell? What is that? Well, should we make that assessment come the end of the season?
Here's the part of the show that I knew we were going to get to. It's arrived just 20 minutes in. Maybe I should have kept the news that Rangers were done for the night. Maybe I should have held off for another 10 minutes just to pad a bit of time. But I think this also requires a lot of conversation. It requires a lot of debate, and time will tell. Ultimately, if Rangers go on and win the title this season, then you can say it's been a good window. They've done their job. The manager's done what he had to do. If Rangers fall short, we know the criticism that's going to come. We'll say there should have been another striker. I think we've both been on record, Derek, over the last couple of weeks, certainly over a couple of weeks before the window even opened, talking about what Rangers had to do and then what we thought Rangers would do. Ultimately, they're not listening to us because they've not signed the second striker. I think there's a lot of perception at play here. If Rangers hadn't signed Fabio Silva when they did, and they signed him 5 minutes ago, people would have been saying £35 million and Portuguese under 21 come from the Premier League. What a bit of business. We're going to go and win the Premiership. The fact that he signed 4 weeks ago and people have already seen him and he's not scored, it's put everyone on this massive downer. Rangers have signed a striker. Rangers have added in that area of the pitch. But I'm sure we're both not alone thinking potentially another one short. I would like to have seen another one come in. You do wonder if they will just find themselves a wee bit short of goals. I know Dessers is on this a decent run of form, but you still have these doubts. Is there enough goals within this squad to actually go in and win the title? Losing Roof again has been a blow. Losing Danilo for the time that he's been ruled out for, it's a huge blow. Losing Abdallah Sima just came out of the blue, and the fact that Senegal are now knocked out of AFCON earlier than everybody expected just adds to the blow. If he hadn't picked up that knock, he'd be back in the country and be available for next few games. So that's really just been a disastrous development for Rangers. And I do think they are one short, but ultimately the manager and the players now have the chance to go and prove us wrong. I know there's been a lot of debate. There's been more comments on the show and on the site and on all the social media. There's not been an area of the pitch that's been debated and discussed more than the final third. Everyone wanted another striker. Ultimately, Rangers have decided they didn't need another striker. They're happy to go with what they've got. Someone or one group will be proven right come the end of May. It'll either be the fans or it'll be the board and the manager and the squad. Fingers crossed it's Philippe Clement and not us. I'm happy to be wrong on this one, Derek. So time will tell.
Yep, the manager knows what he's doing. Of course, that is why he's the manager of Rangers, and he's doing a marvellous job so far. So, in Clement, we trust. Fruit Passo God has kindly donated to the channel, and he says, raising the point, Shankland coming just left of the Lagoon Chippy, Big Dave McPherson going the other way, and he's kindly also gifted 5 Rangers Review YouTube memberships as well, folks. So if you want to pick up one of them, then please do so. Thank you very much, buddy. That is very kind of you doing that. And so let's get to some of the points, interesting ones that I just flagged up here. Gary with a point here. He says, Derek, ask Chris, does he think or know if the new boys will be in contention for the weekend? Of course, Mohamed Diamandi arrived in Glasgow. I think it was Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken.
I've lost all track of days, Derek. Don't ask me what day it is.
It was earlier on in the week anyway. So we know Cortez is in the door now as well. I'd imagine they'll be getting game time against Livingston. I think that is a perfect opportunity, Chris. Maybe not starting the game, but certainly in the second half we should see them feature.
I would think it's, as you say, it's a good opportunity for them. They also had some paperwork to get done in terms of Diamandi. Also had to wait for the work permit and all those bits of paperwork being done before he could join up with the squad. Cortez came in earlier on this week, and that deal has been in the pipeline. I know it's taken until 9 o'clock on deadline day for it to be announced, but that's been boxed off over the last 36 hours or so almost. So hopefully both these guys will be involved as soon as possible. I know that the fans, well, everybody's perhaps on a bit of a downer because there's no striker coming in. I think they should still be excited to see how these 3 players are going to fit into the team. We've obviously seen Silva, we've seen glimpses of him. I remain to be convinced that he's going to be a 20-goal a season striker. If he can get 10, 12 between now and the end of the season, I think he's then potentially played hopefully play a big part in Rangers having a good end to the campaign. So we've seen him. We know roughly what he can do. Certainly more to come from him, as we know. The other 2 don't know a lot about them. Obviously, Josh has done some excellent work in terms of his scout reports. I know we've all spoken to different guys that have seen him that know both of them. So both of them have arrived with good profiles. Both have arrived with good pedigrees. Both have arrived with very little being known about them in terms of what they can actually do right now. But I think a lot of excitement in terms of what they can do going forward. So hopefully we'll see them sooner rather than later. And also Rangers now into this run of games. Strange actually having no midweek game this week. There's been that many over the course of the season so far. Rangers now in this really important run. There's domestic games, European games back on the schedule soon. So these guys will be required. They will be required soon. They will have to get up to speed soon. They'll have to settle because as much as there's a belief that they will be good long term, they have to contribute now. If you're only going to bring 3 players in during the course of the January window, all 3 of them have to contribute now because the squad needed quality. The squad needed an injection. And I say time will tell if these are the 3 right players to go on and do that.
Yep. Right, let's get to some of the points coming in. So many at this point in time. First of all, slightly left field. Test Video says, can you chaps give a shout out to Glasgow's very own Angela McCluskey? She wrote, I'm feeling it. The Aussie DJ stole it. She deserves recognition. The fans should know it was written by a Glaswegian. So there you go. She gets a shout out from us. Cracking song, Angela, if you're tuning in. I'm sure you are, because everyone else is, to the Rangers Review transfer show. It's a cracking tune. So you're getting the credit for that one. Greg Simpson says, Derek, is it a full shirt and trousers or is it the Zoom standard shirt and boxers? Lol. I'll leave that up to your imagination, buddy. I'll leave that there with regards to that one. And this, again, slightly taken away from Rangers, Chris. This caught my eye from James. He says, just curious, have either of you played at a decent level? I've seen someone tweeting earlier saying that me, Jonny, they'd accept Rangers signing me or Jonny just to back up to the forward area. Were you a dab hand in your playing days, Chris?
No, my playing days were very, very much behind me at present. I don't think I would. Don't think I'd pass the bleep test now. Unfortunately, my running days are beyond me.
Yeah. And Thomas says Jonny can play. So, yeah, we'll get Jonny on shortly. But I think Jonny's playing days are behind him as well. There's a point that came in just on going back to the striking situation. Denzel raised it, and quite a number of people are raising it as well. He says, we all know the score now. Dessers gets crocked, false nines all round, and Mike Kelly with the point. So what happens if Dessers gets an injury? That's a big concern for me, Chris. There's no doubt about it. We've seen what happened in the run to Seville when Joe Aribo was playing as a makeshift number 9. I fear that could materialise once again. I know we just touched on Fabio Silva. He said it himself. He's not an out-and-out number 9. Oscar Cortez, I think, will contribute, but again, he's a winger forward type. He's not necessarily a guy that plays through the middle. Dessers, as we touched on, is in a good run of form at this moment in time. Whether that can continue remains to be seen. He's certainly improved a great deal under the manager, and I've got to say I was slightly concerned when I seen there was a couple of Serie A teams keeping tabs on him, but there's no way Rangers are going to let him go unless they get a real sensational offer. But that is a concern. There's no doubt about it. We're not going to see Danilo or Kemar Roof for some time. Abdallah Sima we all know about. Will we see him in the Rangers jersey? I think it was 6 to 8 weeks was the prognosis. Let's hope it's 6 as opposed to 8. However, Rangers are light up there, Chris. There's no doubt about it. Do they have enough firepower to win the league?
Time will tell. As we said, I would like to have seen another one come in. I fully understand why the fans were. They had this real kind of wish for another striker to come in. Everyone woke up this morning thinking it's deadline day, we'll get another striker in, and if we get another one in, then we'll go and win the league. It's been that type of window that no matter what the news has been, no matter what deals we've spoken about, we've revealed, we've analysed, we've debated, it's always been, but what about the next one? But what about a striker? There's not been a name that's been mentioned more on the morning briefing over the course of the window than Lawrence Shankland, and that tells you a story. People wanted another striker, and people wanted someone they could hang their hat on to say he'll go and get his 15 goals guaranteed between now and the end of the year, and that could play a big part. I think people are writing off Fabio Silva too early. And that's a guy who has gone for a lot of money in the past, who has played at a higher level and has not scored a lot of goals, but has scored goals at higher levels than the Scottish Premiership. He should be able to contribute. There's also a lot of money and a lot of faith being put in him over the course of the window by the manager. If Rangers really, really, really felt they needed another one, I'm sure they would have gone and done it, and they would have pushed for it. But signing a striker, it's not a guarantee.
No.
I've seen strikers that come in. There's ones in the squad just now. It does take time for strikers to come in and find their feet. We actually had a piece on the website a few months ago. I spoke to Mark Catley about that particular fact. I spoke to Alec McLeish for that piece as well, about guys that come in. It does take you time. Not every striker is going to come in, hit the ground running and score 10 goals in his first 15 or so games. Yes, it'd be great if it happened, but it doesn't. There's just no guarantee. And spending money on someone again is no guarantee. Look at the money that's been spent on the summer. Dessers has been a big outlay. Sam Lammers was a big outlay. Danilo was a big outlay. Money has been spent on the forward line. It's not always been spent. Not always been spent wisely. And I think I say Rangers. Personally, I think they are short. We're going to need goals from other areas of the side. We're going to need Tav to continue to score. You're now looking at in the midfield, you're looking at Cantwell, big pressure on him. Raskin has to contribute more. Diomande, we're hoping, can come in and be that creative spark in there. We need him to get 5, 7 or so. I think there's a lot of pressure now on Fabio Silva to come in and to start scoring goals. There's a lot of pressure on Dessers to continue this form that he's been in. Again, we've spoken about him so often over the course of the season. He's in a good place right now. He's in a good bit of form. That has to continue. Now, scoring 3 goals in 3 games is great, but that has to continue because there's now so much pressure on him. And again, as a couple of the comments I've said, he has to stay fit as well. Thankfully, that has been one of the things he has been good at. Yeah. He's proven himself to be fairly robust. I think we both spoke about this the other day there. for all the knocks that he's taken, for all the criticism that he's had, he keeps coming back. He keeps putting himself there. Doesn't always be in the right place at the right time, because sometimes he gets caught offside. But he has proven himself to be robust physically and mentally. He keeps coming back. He keeps coming forward. He's going to need that, because there's so much weight on his shoulders now.
Yeah, I remember saying that about Alfredo Morelos in that run to Seville. Gets injured, and I still think Rangers would have gone on and won that trophy if Morelos was up front on that evening. But that's by the by. Colin Cooper with a point. Not specifically Rangers related. He says Derek Seek, Brian Kent going to Lazio. That's actually collapsed, buddy. That move from Fenerbahce to Lazio is off due to something to do with his wages, I think, that he's owed at Fenerbahce. I believe he's not having a great time over there in Istanbul. I've seen a few people commenting saying that they've spotted Casper Kent at Ibrox and all this sort of carry on. That is not happening, folks. I would be amazed if that was to unfold. But if it does, then you'll hear it here first. But that would have been a great move for him, Chris. I was thinking about that earlier on. Lazio Champions League side, of course, compared to some of the other destinations and clubs that were interested in him, that would have been a sensational move for him.
It would have done. It would have been a better move than the one that he made in the summer. Proof that grass isn't always greener on the other side. I don't think he'll be the only player who's left Rangers over the last couple of seasons who will be thinking that. You look at Alfredo's fortune since he left. You look at like Joe Aribo, his career's not really kicked on as such. I'm sure that I know there was a clamour a couple of weeks ago, people saying, getting to be a bit desperate perhaps, bring back Ryan Kent, bring back Alfredo Morelos. These guys, they were not the answer during their last season at Rangers. They're not the answer as a short-term fix just now. So I think it's for the best that Rangers have moved on. I certainly wish both of them well, but they've both had their struggles since leaving Ibrox, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's some cracking questions that have been sent in. Well, first of all, we'll take the question here. Michael and Andrew, both with the same question. I know you love these questions, Chris. It says, Chris, were Rangers ever interested in Shankland? They've not had an approach Hearts all window. I know that they offered the Lawrence Shankland a second improved contract offer, gave him a deadline of last night. He's not signed it. He will be staying there at Tynecastle, though, until the end of the season, barring any late moves. But I think if Rangers wanted him, Chris, it would have been done by now.
Definitely. So if there was a real wish for Rangers to sign Lawrence Shankland, they would have made their move a long time ago, because they would have had to have put in a bid and then get tested the water. I don't think Hearts would have been easy to deal with, because again, as we've spoken about over the last couple of weeks, there's a lot at stake for Hearts. Not losing their captain, top goal scorer, such an influential part of the side. Rangers would have had to have made it very, very worth their while financially for them to even consider it. I don't think Shankland would have been a difference between people being ecstatic with the transfer window or being completely against it. I think it would have been a good signing at the right money. But there's a level for all the conversations we've had over the last few weeks, both on the show and with various press guys and friends and family, and everybody has asked about Lawrence Shankland. My stance has always been the same. There was always going to be potentially a magic number that Hearts would have settled at, and the Rangers would have wanted to pay. And I think for Rangers, it would have been on the higher side. Hearts would have held out for a lot for Shankland for various reasons. And if Rangers wanted him, they could have gone and tried to get him. There's been a lot of talk about him. There's been a lot of, obviously, there's newspaper columns written, shows like ourselves have done it. There's various other phone-ins and forums and Twitter. There were a lot of talk about Lawrence Shankland. Ultimately, nothing concrete has come from Rangers. Nothing concrete has come from Hearts. No bids have been put in. No moves have been made. So I think that probably tells you that it's been more of a talking point. One, it's been something that people have really latched onto. So we've been asked about it every single day. I don't think we've done a briefing, Derek, where it's not come up. but there's not been anything from either club to suggest that it was ever close. And the fact that Rangers have not made a bid, I think that tells everything that they have to know.
Yeah, for me, Rangers should have bought him when he was banging them in for Ayr United back in the day when Rangers were coming up through the leagues. I think that was the opportunity to bring him to the club. It hasn't materialised, and it's not going to happen in this window. So whether it costs Rangers the championship or not remains to be seen. There was a comment came in from Maka. Says, well, Big Phil explained why we didn't bring in a striker at Friday's presser. I'm sure that'll be one of the questions that he will be quizzed on when he speaks to us all tomorrow afternoon. Incidentally, that press conference will take place just shortly after 1 p.m. We'll hear from the Rangers player who's put up and the manager around about 1:30 as he looks ahead to that game against Livingston on Saturday. This is a question that myself and Joshua were racking our brains earlier in the Q&A show, Chris. Number of people are commenting in with the same question. Gordon Wood says, who do you choose as your 3 additions to the Euro squad, lads? That European squad, incidentally, folks, has to be submitted by midnight tonight. So no messing about from Rangers with regards to that. Philip Clement did say previously that was imbalanced, and I'm sure he will looking to bring bit more balance to that squad. There's a number of players that weren't included in the European squad initially, i.e. Ridvan, Leon Balogun are 2 names that I think will be in the running to be admitted to that squad. And then you've got the new signings as well, Chris. No Danilo, Kamar Roof, Abdallah Sima won't be there. It's a puzzle for the manager to solve this one.
Just another puzzle out of all the puzzles that he's had to solve. This, thankfully for him, this is one that he actually has a bit of control over. I think he has made it. I think he's made it fairly clear over the course of his tenure so far how he was not overly impressed with the squad that Michael Beale selected. It's also caused them issues at different times. So I think it's fairly safe to say that Ridvan will be one of the ones that comes back into that squad. You'd assume Diomande comes in. You'd assume that Cortez comes in as well. But there's also the other ones. Also, Balogun is one that you mentioned. So it'll be interesting to see how he has that balance. I think overall, as much as the European side of it is great, and we're all looking forward to the draw in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's all about the league, isn't it?
And so who we get, it very much takes a back. It goes in the back burner for me right now. There's so many more important games coming up. That's not to say we write them off and we play a weekend side and we don't want to win them. But there's so much else on the go for Rangers. So you're then potentially looking at how do you balance the squad? Who do you perhaps save? So I actually forgot about. I see the comments coming. I actually forgot about Silva for European squad there. So apologies. That's me adding 4, and there's only 3. So
he has to be included, Chris. Given that the injuries up there, he surely has to be up. He has to be one of the first names included in there. It's whether Clement is happy with Bonner for the European games. Do you include Diomande and Cortez? I'm sure they'll both want to be involved.
I think Cortez is probably if you looked at it, Cortez is probably the one that misses out then, I would think. I actually forgot all about their Silva. So apologies to Fabio if he's tuning in this evening to see what it is. But I think he's also the one that comes in. Ridvan also comes in. I think the manager's made that clear. But as I was saying, I think it's as much as European aspect. Looking forward to it. It'd be nice to have it back at Ibrox. Looking forward to whatever the next trip is going to be. It's for me, it's definitely not the most important thing. I don't see Rangers I'm not saying they're not going to be fussed about it, but it's all about the Premiership. The league title has to be won this season, and there will come a time where that will take priority.
Yes, absolutely. There was a point that came in, just to clarify again, buddy, Bluebells are Blue says, is Sifu away, Derek Chris? He will be departing Rangers. The Brazilian transfer window doesn't end at the same time as the Scottish one. Of course, we wrap up at 11:30 this evening. It's a few days afterwards, if I'm not mistaken, Chris. I think that ends.
I think it's early March, I believe it
Oh,
actually
is it?
finishes.
Wow.
So there is I think there is a bit of time there.
Yeah.
So again, as you said at the top of the show, it will be one that gets done. As far as we're aware, it will be Brazil that Cifuentes is heading to, and that will be the final bit of business for this window for Rangers.
Yeah. Maka says, Derek, given the lack of action, do you expect Stevie to be in a good mood this evening? Well, we'll soon find out in just over 15 minutes' time, buddy, when he joins us. I'm sure he's been playing Robocop for the last 8 hours. He's well and truly into his gaming, but we'll soon find out if he's got a smile on his face or not. John McKean with the point says, Derek, Chris, do you think we'll win the league with our squad? Yes, for me. Yeah, we touched on that. I still think under this management team that Rangers are on course for a very successful end of the season. I know it's going to be tough. We are still reliant on, it's in the Rangers' own hands, of course, whether they can go the season unbeaten. It's going to be really tough. Whether they can win every single game, I doubt, but I can see Celtic dropping points along the way, Chris. And what gives me encouragement as well is I'm not exactly blown away by some of the additions that they are making. They may hit the ground running, who knows? But I know within their fan base, not best pleased at some of the business or lack of business that is being carried out. So Rangers very much in this title race, there's no doubt about it.
I think it's been a really interesting window all across Scottish football, and certainly across the Old Firm divide. As you mentioned, Derek, it's not been the window that Celtic fans were ever hoping for. If you look at the business that they've done, I don't see how they have strengthened their squad to really take them away from Rangers. That perhaps feeds into a frustration amongst Rangers fans because they see a real opportunity there of Celtic being a bit disillusioned with their side and how things have been going there, and thinking, well, if we could have made another signing, it's a chance to put a bit more pressure on and really kind of kick on. So it all feeds in. Obviously, what one half is doing, the other half has to be fully aware of and react to. You can't just live in your own wee world and not look across the city, especially in Scottish football. So there's a lot at play. I think Rangers are leaving the window stronger than they went into it, which for any transfer window is always a good thing. But it will be that nagging doubt of, could there have been stronger? Could there have been another? Could there be another one that had been a statement of intent type one, just to change the dynamic a wee bit more? Ultimately, it's now down to what the manager does and what the players do on the pitch. Rangers have built a bit of momentum. The manager has shown that he can get the best out of this group. Hopefully, he can continue that improvement. If there's more improvement, if there's further levels to come from a number of individuals and the side as a collective, Rangers should be in the running. They still have questions to answer over, can they do it over a longer period? Can they put together a title winning run at the business end of the season? All fun games. Can they go and win them? Can they go to Parkhead and get a result? All these things are now going to come into play over the course of the next few months. But Rangers have done enough so far. They put themselves within the title race. I think they've done enough over the course of January to keep themselves in the title race. Now it's all about what they do over these next few weeks, starting at the weekend against Lowry. Aberdeen coming up. Also next week's is huge. Ross County game that's coming up is also one of the games in hand. Once you get down to 2 points potentially, again, that changes the dynamic, puts a different pressure on Rangers as the chasers, puts a different pressure on Celtic once you get down to that type of deficit. And Rangers just need to continue doing what they're doing, asking questions of Celtic. And I say time will tell if Rangers have enough. But I think it's nobody can say Rangers will definitely win the league. If anybody wants to put their house on it, by all means, go for it. And I wish you all the very best. But I think going from a situation when the final days of the Michael Beale era, we'd all but written Rangers off and thought there is no way this side and this squad are going to be good enough to go and win the title. When Michael left, or after that Aberdeen game at Ibrox, he just looked at it the situation and thought, nah, it's just not happening for Rangers. Now it's different. They've got a manager there who knows what he's doing. The players have spoken about the clarity of the messaging. They've spoken about his man management. That's been backed up by results. It's been backed up by silverware. So there's definitely a lot there to be confident about and be optimistic about. But I say that now has to be improved on. It has to be taken to the next level. And I think Rangers have done enough. The manager has done enough to deserve a bit of backing, to deserve a bit of faith. As much as people are perhaps underwhelmed by the business that has been done, these are the players that he's wanted to bring in. These are the players that the club are happy to have brought in. It's now just let's give them the chance to go and show what they can do. And fingers crossed, Rangers have done enough and will go and do enough over the next 5 months or so.
Listen, I've said on videos before I felt Rangers needed at least 2 forward players. A class Cortez is a forward player, but an actual out-and-out number 9. They've not done so. So the onus is on Big Serial up top to steer clear from injury and keep up his goal-scoring form. It's whether he can do that or not. But I just trust this team under Philip Clement. They're a different animal than what they were at the start of the season under Michael Beale. And I can see the league title race going all the way. Top G doesn't agree, though. He says, I disagree, Derek, with just Dessers as a striker. I can just see us gifting them the league. It remains to be seen what will unfold. But Rangers do have a favourable run of games, as you touched on there, Chris. 4 matches at home at Ibrox. That's including the Ayr United game in the Cup before we go to Perth to take on St Johnstone later on in the month. All those games. Aberdeen, incidentally, of course, have just sacked Barry Robson after a dismal run of form. I still expect them to be well and truly up for it. It remains to be seen whether they'll have a permanent boss in charge for that game. But Rangers will be looking to make amends after what turned out to be Michael Beale's final game at the toxic Ibrox earlier in the season.
It's quite a bold call from Aberdeen to sack the manager on the eve of a cup final, is it not? No, I don't think that's. I don't think that's been one of the most unsurprising developments of the last couple of days. It's been almost heading that way for quite some time under Barry Robson. Aberdeen have not been in a good run of form, but we know coming to Ibrox, we know exactly what they'll bring. We know what the fans will make of it. We know all the aspects of it. It's going to come at Rangers, but it doesn't make any difference. The Rangers have to go and take care of business at the weekend. Have to go and take care of business against Aberdeen, and as we've said, there's that chance now to really start building a bit of momentum for things to really start kicking on once again. So fingers crossed that can be the case, because it'd be a shame if the momentum was halted. I think that the manager has said there's going to be bumps in the road. I think he said after the game at the weekend, we'll slam our head into a wall or something like that. That was the phrase that he used. There's going to be one of these afternoons where it doesn't quite work for Rangers, whether it be Ibrox, whether it be on the road. Something will go wrong at some point. When it does happen, it'd be the usual call for calm. Let's not go OTT over the whole thing. Let's not lose our minds over the whole thing. It doesn't mean to say next time Rangers drop points that they definitely won't win the league. So let's just see how they go. As I said previously, the manager and the squad have done enough now to deserve a bit of backing. Clement has shown at his previous clubs he knows how to get over the line. The story that he speaks of, and this thing about it being a marathon, not a sprint. I know myself and Josh and yourself, we did a lot of coverage when Clement was appointed about his previous successes. That was a huge part of why he got the job in the first place, because he had this track record of not just winning one league title, but then being able to follow up and to go again, to build winning squads, to have that mentality within a squad. And that's what Rangers required. So I think he has done enough so far to show that he knows what he's doing. He's done enough for me so far to show that he will win a title with Rangers. Will it be this season? Fingers crossed.
Yeah, there's a comment came in incidentally on, lots of comments saying it's good for Rangers to keep Ridvan. There was a point that was raised from Andy Mack. From what I'm aware, Ridvan could still go. Turkey's transfer deadline doesn't finish till mid-February, so a gamble to add him to the Euro squad. It ends on the 9th of February, the Turkish window. Not entirely sure why different countries have different window deadlines, but there you go. But I can't imagine he'll be going anywhere anytime soon. I was surprised, incidentally, Galatasaray have just sold Boy to Bayern Munich for 30 million euros. So they do have the cash, but they failed to meet Rangers' valuation for Ridvan. Big welcome to CY, who's become a member on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for joining us, buddy. Hopefully you enjoy the content that is coming your way. And there was a point I was going to raise as well, just on those games that are coming up, the favourable games, of course. On paper, you'd like to think that Rangers will be able to negotiate those ones and be in a strong position in the league and also progress in that Scottish Cup as well. Of course, Rangers competing on all fronts at this moment in time. We've got the Europa League to look forward to. That draw at the end of the month. The last 16 tie takes place in March, I'm sure it is. So certainly something to look forward to as well. Well, the Rangers do have the squad to compete on all those fronts. It will remains to be seen, but certainly they've shown, as you mentioned, Chris, under Philippe Clement, they're just they know how to win games now. A lot of these players that we felt were at the end of their Rangers careers, and some they are producing now, whereas they weren't under the previous managerial regime. There's a comment came in just on Lundstram as well. I mean, he's one of a number of players that has really excelled under the new manager. There's questions saying, what is this contract situation at this moment in time? For the life of me, I can't find the comment. It's certainly one, just to update you folks, is he and the club still negotiating with regards to that. But of all the players that are out of contract, Chris, I think he is the one that will commit his future to the club.
It looks like it. That's something the manager addressed after the game down at Dumbarton in Scottish Cup last weekend, or the weekend before, sorry. And I think, or as far as we're aware, it will be something that'll get sorted. There's obviously been focus on other issues. The out of contract guys are not the biggest issue at present, but it is something now the club, I think, will look to progress. Right now, I think it's probably the right thing for Rangers and for Lundstram. I did say a few weeks ago there was no rush on my part. I was happy for Rangers to really hold off until end of the season almost. I didn't really see the rush. But if the manager feels that now is the right time and the club are happy to reward John at this time, then by all means go for it. I think his form since Clement has come in has been very impressive. He's more than earned that deal. I would still like to see more from him. I don't think he's the type of guy who's going to play every minute. I think there's certain games, perhaps even likes of Livy at Ibrox, in theory, not the best game for him. More of a Parkhead, Aberdeen type option, perhaps.
Yeah.
But then he came in the last couple of games and he's turned into an assist machine. These wee dinks over the top. They're a very welcome addition to John Lundstram, because it's not something that we've seen off enough. It's not something that we've seen enough of over the course of his Rangers career. And if he can add that to his game, then it takes him to a different, takes his game up a level. I think there's definitely more to come from him in that regard. I think the manager will be looking to say, well, you've shown that you can play those passes, that you can get head up a bit more. Me and Josh both said during the St Mirren game at the weekend, first 10, 15, 20 minutes, Lundstram, he was always head up, he was always playing the ball forward. It seemed to be moving the ball quicker, injecting a bit of pace into the game, because I think at times that's one of the things that has been really criticised for. It's been a bit slow and a bit predictable and a bit lackadaisical at times.
Yeah.
Shown that he can play at a higher tempo, it's shown that he can play those passes, it's shown that he can get forward into the final third. So I think if he continues to show that, he offers a different option from the middle of the pitch. But we're seeing, or need to see more from Cantwell, need to see more from Raskin. where you see Diomande coming in and whatever role he's going to take. So there's options in the middle of the pitch now for the manager. People have to remember it's only 5 weeks ago we were playing Dowell and Stirling at Fir Park, and then thinking, well, what are we going to do at Parkhead? Just because of the injury situation. So if you look at also Lundstram being on form, Diomande coming in, Raskin and Jack and Lawrence coming back, Sterling being a revelation in that area of the pitch, there's now options for the manager there. He can mix and match. He can go different styles in that midfield, and that's only going to bode well for the FA squad going forward. So as much as there's a bit of consternation over the final third, the middle of the pitch does look a lot stronger for Rangers now, and I think there's going to be a bit of onus on these guys to contribute in terms of goals going forward.
Yeah, Alan McConnell with a point. He says that of the out of contract players, which of these players would you wish to keep, guys? I think Lundstram's the only one. There was a comment just prior to that saying that they'd be inclined to keep Leon Balogun as well. Big cracking guy. Whether they add him for another year, it remains to be seen. I remember when Davy Weir was brought up by Walter, and he kept playing well into his 40s. So you never know. He keeps himself fit. Leon. There was a question as well that's coming in. We'll address that shortly. First of all, we are approaching at 10 o'clock, so it's now time to find out if Stevie Clifford has a smile on his face. Here is Stevie. How are we doing, Stevie?
Good evening, mate. How are you? You well?
Super. How are you getting on?
Aye, fabulous, mate. I've just finished work, so it's been an extremely busy day. Had a very good morning, but it's been an extremely busy day since then. So Chris knows I've been on the phone to Chris every 10 minutes all day. So
this is not the first time we've spoken today.
Right, let's. I'm going to get your thoughts on the window, Stevie. Before that, I just want to. I'll read you out, folks, on the Rangers website, just to keep you up to speed. If you are just tuning in to our marathon transfer deadline day show, Rangers have confirmed the signing of Oscar Cortez from RC Lens on a loan deal until the end of the season, with an option to buy in the summer, subject to international clearance. This is what it says on the club's website. The 20-year-old Colombian becomes the third January addition for Philip Clement, following the arrivals of Fabio Silva and Mohamed Diomande. Cortez progressed through the youth ranks of Colombian top-flight side Millonarios, making his first-team debut for the club only days after his 18th birthday, making a strong impression in the Copa Libertadores as a teenager last year, notably against Brazilian giants Atletico Mineiro. The winger caught the eye of Ligue 1 runners-up RC Lens ahead of their return to the Champions League. In the meantime, Cortez made his senior Colombia debut last June against Iraq, stepping up from the under-20 squad, where he continues to make a strong goal-scoring impression. The winger's performances for Millonarios saw him clinch a permanent move to Lens last summer, where despite his young age, he has both scored and assisted in his 4 appearances in Ligue 1. Cortez commented, "I am very honoured and privileged to be signing for Rangers. I have heard a lot about the history and tradition of Rangers, and I've had positive conversations with the manager, who said I can help the team reach their goals this season. I am really excited to join up with my teammates and hopefully exciting the fans with my style of play." Manager Philip Clement added, "I am really delighted to add Oscar to our squad. Our discussions have been really positive, and I believe he'll be a big asset to the squad as we fight across 3 fronts for the remainder of this season. Oscar is really enthusiastic about our aims and ambitions as a team, and his skill set will provide welcome competition to our forward line." And Director of Recruitment Niels Coppin said, "Oscar had been on our radar for a long time and is one of the best performers at the South American Under-20 Championship. He quickly became an important player for Millonarios in the Copa Libertadores and made the move to Europe through good contacts, further analysis, and our belief in his talent. We are pleased to seize this moment to sign him. With his pace, goal threat, and technical level, he will give us more options on the wing, and working with our manager, we believe we can take his development to the next level." Stevie, happy with Oscar Cortez in the door?
Yeah, sure. I think he's spoke about this the other morning, didn't we? So I think he's got, right credentials. He's a good profile, a good age, and he's got some quite exciting stats in there, particularly as you said with the under-20s, and got a good return for Millonarios before he kind of moved on. But I think obviously Lens hasn't really worked for him. He's only got 40 minutes in his appearance and still managing an assist and a goal. So I think he'll be an exciting player. And we all said we needed a winger, especially a right-sided one. So I think it makes sense. I think it's a good signing. And, I'm looking forward to seeing him play. So yeah, I mean, all in all, Derek, I think he's a good addition. So it's a positive one.
Yeah, over the piece, Stevie, me and Chris were discussing whether the window will be shown to be a successful one. I think Rangers are stronger at the end of the window as opposed to when they first went into it. Now, we all know, I think we're all in agreement. We'd like to have seen another striker added to the pool. What's your overall assessment of the window and the business that's been done?
Not enough, Derek. That's my biggest fear. So I'll explain myself a wee bit. I think the ones that have came in are good business. I think they're all good players, and hopefully they'll prove that. I think getting in another 10 forward like Fabio Silva, a winger and a midfielder, and Diamande is more of a signing, I think, for maybe next season and stuff like that is good business. And I think that they're quite exciting. I've got no issues with that. My issue is we're a Cyril Desser's injury away from an absolute catastrophe up top again.
Yep.
And 2 years ago, we were in this exact same position where we were going for a league title and we ended up going all the way to a European final without a striker, and it really cost us in the end. And my fear and worry is that we are one injury away from this happening all over again. Now, Cyril Dessers has been terrific in the last couple of weeks, but it wasn't less than 4 weeks ago that most people would have wanted him out the club. So it's been a great turnaround for him, but we're now kind of pinning our hopes on him, which is, to me, as good a player as he might be and as good a player as he now shown, I think is a massive risk to take. And I think that we've been let down slightly by the lack of a kind of forward coming in. So I would like to hear what the manager's got to say about that with regards to, did he try and get a forward, then no problem. But, maybe he just decided, and if he's happy and he's taken that, and then, okay, that's fine. I'm enough to trust him. But my own opinion on it is that we're kind of replaying the same scenario that we done 2 years ago, and it makes it quite difficult. And please don't confuse this, folks, with me saying I'm not happy with the guys coming in, or I'm not happy with Dessers, or I just think we're short, and I think it's really gambling, particularly the way our injuries have been. Kamar Roof's out for 2 months. Danilo, we're not sure if we'll see him again this season. It's a huge gamble, Derek, and I think it's an unnecessary one. I know that Fabio Silva can be a 9, but I think we've saw enough of him to think that he's possibly a 10 and very similar to what we've already got. The difference between us and our nearest rivals is unfortunately the fact that they've got people that can put the ball in the net no matter what. And we don't have that. We don't have that clinical edge, and we really needed that this window. And I know it's difficult. I really do. I know that, these type of players to find are really difficult. But my priority from day one, and I've written enough about it and said enough about it, was to get a number 9 that can score goals.
Yeah.
When Silva then got injured and went out the team, we're taking 20-odd goal involvements out of our team and 15 goals on its own. We need somebody else. And I just think, and I'm really worried that the board have taken the same gamble that we've done a couple of years ago, when perhaps if we'd pushed the board out a wee bit and went and got somebody in, it would pay, dividends at the end of the season. Don't forget, Derek, 2 years ago, not only did we lose the title and not win a European final, we also lost Champions League money, which then kicks on because they strengthen and they can go and buy Carter Vickers and Jotters and stuff, because maybe they wouldn't have got them without Champions League money. And Rangers are then catching up, who they then sell these guys on for big money in the case of Jota. So it all has a spiraling effect. And I don't want to be in a position come the summer where we nearly were there, but a draw or two's cost us because we don't have anybody to finish. And we needed somebody in these games where we went up to Pataudry and it's 1 each and stuff, and you miss an abundance of chances. That's my big fear, that we just don't have somebody. So I feel like, as much as I'm happy with the business done, as much as I'm happy with the players that are there, I don't feel that we've got a clinical edge that we really, really need. So that's my biggest issue. And I hope that people can understand where I'm coming from this. I didn't put it as delicately to Chris about an hour ago, but that's kind of where I am with it.
Right, okay, interesting stuff. Let's get to some of the comments, some interesting points being made. First of all, Mary says, well, Alistair here, I don't know why the username's Mary, he says, in Missouri, USA, listen to your show every day. Love the show, hope we get a number 9. So just echoing the views of many there. Just on Cortez, Chris, Leesky says, what's the option to buy price for Cortez? I know that Lons paid €4 million for him initially last summer. Have we got any idea on what sort of figure Rangers are likely to pay for him?
I don't know that one as yet. I've asked the question after the deal was announced, so I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. If we do find out, I'll obviously stick it on it'll be on the website and be on our social channels. But I don't have that figure yet, unfortunately. You would imagine Longs will look to get back as much as they paid for him. Just a few months ago. I know I mentioned at the top of the show I had written that piece on Cortez. It's now live on the site. I've put it on Twitter, and it's on our channels as well. So if you want to know a bit more about Cortez and his journey, his rise to prominence in Colombia, and a bit more about that move to France, it's not worked out. He lays out why that move was made, and perhaps why that move has not worked out. So there's plenty of Cortez details in that piece, and also Josh had his scouting report on him the other day as well. So plenty to get your teeth stuck into on Cortez, and hopefully he's worth the wait and worth the hype.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one of a potential outgoing. We're led to believe that Rangers would be easy to deal with if an approach was made. But John Taylor says, guys, any news on Ben Davis moving out, as I think he is surplus. As it stands, he's still a Rangers player. That sort of defensive area, Stevie, it's not an area of concern. You said that if Dessers gets injured, then everyone is it's panic stations time. But in defence, they've got the best defence, but the best defensive record in the league. I think they're well stacked Rangers in that area of the pitch. That being said, I think the manager did touch on Ben Davis recently. He was apparently a short-term injury and he would be back soon. Didn't know when he was going to be back the last time he was quizzed on him. Who knows when we'll see him back in action in the Rangers jersey, but I think it looks like he won't move on in this window. I'd imagine he'll be moving on in the summertime.
You love asking me about Ben Davis, don't you? You know, fine. Already grumpy because we don't have a striker in the door, so how can I wind him up more? Listen, I think Ben Davis has done fine under Clement in a couple of games that he's played. I think he's actually looked quite assured. But if we're serious about where we need to get to, then if we're paying that money for players, they need to have a positive impact on the first team. I don't think he's shown enough for me personally. I think he's competent on the ball. I think he's good positionally, but defensively, I'm not sure that he's as good as perhaps other defenders that we have. So I'm not hugely concerned by Ben Davis not being available for us. I think with Leon Balogun, Connor Goldson, John Souttar, Leon King, we have enough cover in there. But this is what I've talked about for quite a while, about players that we spend this kind of money on and are giving out big wages who aren't affecting the first team as much as they should be. I don't think that Ben Davis, we can allow that situation to kind of go on for much longer. I know you said it would be easy to deal with, and absolutely, teams have got to want to buy players, but he's probably on a list of players at the club where if he moved on, you wouldn't really miss him too much. I think that's diplomatic as I can be on Ben Davis.
Yeah. He is part of the European squad. I imagine he'll still be there. I think there's more pressing areas of the pitch that Rangers will need to address as we head into the Europa League campaign. Let's get to a few comments. Joshua, this is random. He just says, Dessers has commented on my TikTok. So there you go. What? Let us know what your TikTok was, Joshua. The big serial is commenting on. Is it a Todd Cantwell style dance? Let us know. Stevie, a lot of comments, of course, we discussed when we were on the other day there. How you're staying up until the middle of the night playing RoboCop. We've had a few different name suggestions being fired into the chat. Big Phil, wondered if it is Big Phil himself. He says, yep, Robo Stevie. That is what you're being referred to as now. And Thomas says, Steve-O-Cop. Any further forward in the game, Stevie?
I'm pleased to update everybody that Wendell Antonowski has been apprehended by my good self in a night of serious playing the other morning, which I stayed up again till 4 o'clock. And so it's been good fun. So I'm 12 levels into 30 odd. So I'm having a lot of fun playing that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been asking me online, is it worth buying and stuff like that? If you're a fan, like genuinely, like people, you seen it the other day. So if you're a fan of the film, go and buy it because it's great fun.
Yep. Are you a gamer, Chris?
I've got no time to be doing it between a new baby and chasing Rangers transfers over the last 4 weeks. I don't have the time for it, unfortunately.
I don't blame you, buddy. Let's get back to more pressing matters and Rangers. That's why people are tuning in. I thought this was an interesting point, and many people are commenting in with regards to this. Tom, I'll get your point first, Chris. Derek, Stevie, Chris, would you have taken Van Veen as a stopgap until the summer? Looks like he's heading back to Scotland. Last asking, there was a number of clubs interested in him, Chris. I think, was it St Mirren that were the front runners? I'm not sure if that deal, I've not checked recently. But would Van Veen have been a decent shout just as a stopgap, as someone just to hang your hat on if necessary, if required?
I'm not convinced, boss. I know he had a good scoring record with Motherwell, and that also then got me his move. His time back in Holland has not worked out. Signed for Kelly on loan. There was interest from St Mirren. There was interest from Motherwell, but it's Kelly that he's chosen to go to.
Yeah, I've seen that. He's joined Kilmarnock. Yeah,
I think that's a really good bit of business for Derek McInnes. I think he'll do well down there. For me, he's not a Rangers striker. I know there's been this huge wish for another striker to come in, but that doesn't mean that you just go and sign anyone and you go and sign somebody that's ever played up front. I don't see him being a Clement style of striker, and I've never really bought into the hype. I think for Kelly at that level, he'll score goals and he'll be fine. I'm not convinced he's the man that Rangers required for what we are looking for.
Stevie, Van Veen, would you have liked to? I mean, he's going to feature for Kilmarnock between now and the end of the season. Would you have taken him just as another body in there?
If you'd asked me at 6 o'clock tonight, I probably would have talked myself into it, Derek, because I was at the stage of anyone will do. But listen, I think he's a good striker for a certain level, with no disrespect. It's probably why he done so well for Motherwell. He took a lot of penalty kicks and stuff like that, and I think he was a decent player for them as a kind of target man. I think he'll do well for Kilmarnock as well. They've got Vassell, who up front is quite quick, and that might complement him quite well. Obviously got Armstrong as well on the wing that can feed him plenty of opportunities. So I think he'll do well. It doesn't really do us any harm having a stronger Kilmarnock when they come up against, Celtic and things like that. So it's a good move for him. Would I have taken him for Rangers? No, not really. I think we'd commented on this earlier in the window. But as we've said, the more it went on, the more you were just like, we need a goal scorer. So I get it, and I get why some people might have suggested it. But for me, he's not probably where we need to be. Now, I'm almost certain that these words at the end of February, when we go down to Rugby Park, will come stinging back, and he'll do well against us. But I think overall, as Chris said, I'm not sure he's our style really, and what we need out of a forward player. So does he displace Dessers? The answer is probably not. But could he complement him and play a wee bit part here and there and maybe get a few goals? He probably could. I think most strikers for Rangers should be getting goals, I think, with the amount of chances and things we create. So I would have, as I said to you, Derek, he wouldn't have been my first choice, but if you'd offered me him tonight at the point where I would have said aye, probably, because we do, as I said, I think we've been let down by the lack of striker coming in.
Yeah. Lots of comments as well saying, Tam Brown says keeping Cholak was a better option. And then Bob says, cheeky 11th hour offer for Cholak. Bring him home. I'm not sure he's doing particularly well over there at Parma and Serie B. I did say at the time, I think Rangers would have regretted getting rid of Antonio, but it is what it is. Let's get to more pressing matters. David Taylor says, Chris, is that a man cave you're in or what? Always wondered this. Looks magic.
Don't know if you'd define it as a man cave. It's more a home office. I moved into a new home over the summer, and I've recreated the office that I had in my previous one. It was a garage conversion. This is now just a wee outbuilding that I've built myself. Got my laptop in here, iPad, so I guess I can sit and watch the darts tonight while I'm talking to you, gents, and got some various bits of Rangers memorabilia and stuff on the walls, and keep up old programs and stuff as well. So it's my own wee blue room.
Can't hide money, Derek? All those transfers.
Absolutely, no, it does certainly look magic. That's for sure. So mega jealous. And just on decor, Stephen Gillespie earlier said, "Can you mind that cabinet on Sky Sports?" You don't get that in Sky, but who wants to tune into Sky when you can tune in here and watch us talking about Rangers? There's a point here. We'll discuss it because I think it's interesting. One player that's out on loan at this moment in time, Stevie, is Yanis Hagi. Not having the best of times over at Deportivo Alaves. I've seen a few people suggesting and earlier on in the window whether Philippe Clement should look to try and bring him back. He is on a season-long loan there. I think it'll be interesting to get the manager's thoughts on Yanis, incidentally, and what his plans are for him. The comment came in here, do you think we'll ever see Hagi back at Ibrox in a Rangers strip? I have my doubts, I've got to say, Stevie. I think if he goes and has a good Euros, and incidentally, I know that the Romanian manager said to him he has to be playing regularly for him to feature in that squad, so his place is at risk. But if he does go there with Romania, has a good Euros, then it'll do wonders in terms of his valuation if Rangers want to cash in on him. Will we see him in the Rangers jersey again, though?
I wouldn't think so. I believe that he's a sellable asset, and in the summer we'll have to probably sell a few and regroup that squad. And I think he's probably one that we would look at and say, well, you've got some value there, and we might look to move him on. I don't think we could have brought him back in January. As far as I'm aware, when it was first reported, we didn't have that option. So I'm not sure that Yanis Hagi would return to a Rangers jersey. If he is a good Euros and we get 5 million thrown at us, I think that we're taking that and shaking his hand and saying thanks for being part of 55 and things like that. So it's an interesting debate if you want to ask, is Yanis Hagi better than Sam Lammers, Fabio Silva, same position and stuff like that? We'll need to find out on him. But could he have made an impact? He probably could have. So it's just one of those ones, Derek. I don't see him returning, but I wouldn't overly rule it out either. So I think I've covered just about every basis there, with my thoughts on that one. But I don't know. Hagi had his chance and never grabbed it. I'm not sure that's entirely fair. I thought that Yanis played a huge part in our 55 winning season. I thought he was incredibly good at times. He lacks a wee bit of pace, but he's got, he had a lot of assists and he had a few good goals in that season as well when we needed it. So I'm not entirely sure that that's really fair, but then he got injured for a long time. So I mean, I think we kind of forget. I think that we forget maybe the impact that he had on our title winning season. Him and Kamar Roof were the additional goals that we had missed in previous years that fired us to that title that year, in my opinion. So I'm not sure that saying he never took his chances is really fair. I just think that the injury completely set him back, and then Michael Beale decided that he wanted to go with Sam Lammers. And that was the decision that kind of haunted him in the summer, because if he hadn't got Lammers, I don't think Hagi moves. And then Lammers obviously comes in and performs how he does, and it makes people say, why don't we go and get Hagi back, etc. So it's a difficult one for Yanis. I think that he's been really unlucky with his injury and his time at Rangers. Whether he's good enough is a different argument. You would need to properly give the boy a chance and see what he's capable of under Philippe Clement. But I also think that saying he's had no impact and stuff is a bit harsh.
Yeah. Let's get some of the comments coming in. ED Entertainment says, on a side note, has Danny Wilson moved to Queen's Park? He has. That's a good signing for the old Spiders there. He's moved back from America to sign for Queen's Park. So, yeah, good signing for them. Chris, I just noticed that Luke Littler's just been beaten by Michael Smith in the darts.
He has. I mean, I just keep talking about that since there's nothing else happening at Rangers. We'll just talk about video games and darts, and then we'll bring Jonny in, and he can talk about whatever he fancies for the next hour and a half till people go to their bed. Without wishing to ruin somebody else, without wishing to ruin the Luke Littler Loyals night, he has just been beaten as well. So I've ruined the Rangers fans night by saying there's no transfer business, and I've just given you a spoiler for the first night of the Premier League as well. So I apologise to everyone over the course of the evening.
Yeah, just going off piece a little. His local is actually a pub that's pretty near our house. We went and watched him in the final at the World Darts recently, and TV cameras and all sorts were in there. Didn't quite win.
How can he have a local when he's 16? I'm serious.
As you know,
like me when I had my 18th in the pub at home, and the guy's like, "You've been in here for about 4 years." You look about 30. So no, I don't think that's technically allowed, though, is it? You can't have a local.
Well, his brother works behind the bar, and he's been in a few times, just playing darts and having a soft drink, I'd imagine. That's what I
used to tell my mum as well. Mum, I just had a Diet Coke.
Back to Rangers, because we're going off piste a little bit here. Before you go, Chris, because I know you're diving away at past. You've done some shift today. Niels Coppin, the transfer strategy is a lot different than what we have gone through in the sub-capable hands going forward. I think they're identifying players more exciting players, younger players, and players that they will look. Hopefully, Rangers will look to sell on and kickstart that player trading model. That is, I think that's an encouraging thing to look forward to. Niels Coppin being in there. How instrumental do you think his appointment could be?
Very hopefully, because I think, as I said, when Rangers were going through that again, that director of football process was a topic that came up almost every morning over the course of the summer. Derek, it was something that people were honestly really keen on. There's a lot of debate over it. I've had a couple of pieces on the website regarding Niels Coppin and going through his recruitment process that resulted in Rangers bringing him in. So if you want to find out a bit more about his background and some of the successes that he's had at PSV, go and check out that piece on the website, and gives you a bit more detail of his career and why he's at Rangers. Also goes into what the club hope to get out of it. There has been this change in philosophy, if you like. There's this change in planning. I think they will admit themselves that whatever plans they had for the summer, it failed. You know, given Michael Beale basically free rein to go and spend the budget with no checks and balances in terms of a sporting director there, failed. They've now gone down the football board route, which kind of spreads the responsibility a bit. So also the chairman John Bennett's on that, James Bisgrove is on that as chief executive, the manager's on it, and also Niels Coppin. He was the final piece of that jigsaw when he was appointed. So it's a different approach from Rangers. It's one that has to pay dividends. Now the chairman highlighted that in his report when the accounts were released back in November, reaffirmed it again at the AGM a few weeks later. Rangers can't just have sporadic wins. I think John Bennett called them in the transfer market. We need sustained, proper, long-term success. If it's this fourth pillar of the club, it's the one that's not been built yet. It's the one that's failing at present, because Rangers have not had enough wins. They've not recruited and sold well enough over the last few seasons. I think with the Diomande deal and Cortez deal, we're seeing the club going in a different direction. They're targeting a different profile of player. There's not enough resale value in a number of the players that were brought in over the course of the summer, and the club will pay the price for that. You're not going to get your money back on Sam Lammers. You'll probably make a loss on Danilo. You'll probably make a loss on Dessers. So that's something that has to change. Bringing in players like Diomande, really interesting profile. There should be a profit in him. Bringing in Cortez, there should be a profit in him. And we already know that Coppin was hugely influential in the signing of Fabio Silva as well. That was one, even though he hadn't actually started until the 2nd of January, I think his official date was.
Yeah.
He flagged that up to the football board early on that this was a possibility that this deal could get done. Rangers were then able to move early to get that deal done, get Fabio Silva in the building early. As Josh outlined in his piece on Silva, beat off a bit of competition from Europe, potentially a bit of competition from across the city as well. So Kloppen was influential in that particular deal, and then we've then seen this new way of working between Kloppen and Clement over the course of the window, with Diomande coming in and Cortez coming in. That will be something that Rangers look to continue heading into the summer, because they have to target a different profile of player, and they have to move into different markets as well. Piece I had on Diomande on the site a couple of days ago, and went into that fact again about some of the different areas that Rangers are looking at. It's not just a case of we'll go to the Championship and we'll sign players from there, or we'll sign players that the manager knew when he was 5. We're going down different routes. We're actually putting a bit more into the scouting of players now, and going into different markets. So hopefully Rangers can reap the rewards of that. They need players to win. They need players to sell. If they can get players that tick both boxes, then that points a very successful football club.
Yeah, here. And Alan Stewart says, you talk too much sense, Chris. So some kind words indeed. Right, I'll let you head off to bed, Chris. Go and watch the rest of the darts. But thank you very much for your contribution, not only on the show, but also today. I know it's been a roll the sleeves up job, but your work here is done. So I bid you farewell, buddy.
Now that I've managed to send that message in from Alan Stewart, burn their phone, I can sign off for the night. I know burn their phones are all the rage these days.
They certainly are. Right, as Chris departs, a substitution, folks, will now introduce Mr. Joshua Barry to proceedings. 1, 2, 3. Way! How's it going, Joshua?
Still laughing at that burner phone comment from Chris. That was a great sign-off, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
But yeah, good to be here. A lot of people on, a lot of people who want a striker who don't have a striker. So let's hope we can entertain them for another hour and a half or whatever it is, Derek. And great tie, may I say. I see you dressed up for the occasion. Yeah. Stevie and I have forgotten that certain outfit.
Well, at least one of us got the memo.
I just didn't bother.
Yeah.
I'm just in from work.
What's that? Work is not a valid excuse, Stevie. I'm not having that. I'm sorry. Katrina is a big fan as well, loving the tie. Thank you very much, Katrina. That is very nice of you to say so. Joshua, how has your day been? Can you give us a little bit of insight into the world of Joshua Barry and how your day is formulated today on transfer deadline day?
Yeah, pretty busy, Derek. A lot of time sitting in the seat of my laptop, apart from going to the gym. So pretty uninteresting day. I cooked dinner, but that's not what people want to know about.
Well, what did you have? People do want to know.
I had what did I have? I had chicken, honey chicken, right? Garlic.
Wow,
honey. Tasty. Yeah, it's a good meal. But apart from that, yeah, quite quiet there, because obviously everyone knew that Cortez was happening. I think it's one of these ones where we would have been surprised if that announcement was, held somewhat with transfer deadline day in mind, shall we say? And then I guess the conversation then was, okay, well, will Rangers move for a striker? Is something going to happen late? But as I'm sure Chris has already outlined, I've dipped in and out of the last hour and a half. That hasn't been the case. So we've got lots of content on the 3 players that have come in already, Derek, and I've been writing a piece for tomorrow as well that looks at the window overall. So I think it's an interesting window. I gather that there'll be a lot of people, as I said when I came on, who wanted a striker, who don't have a striker today. I do think, as you and I spoke about this morning, there's some context to be applied with the timing of the Fabio Silva arrival. Had that been today or yesterday instead of last month after Dessers had started to score, would it be viewed slightly differently? Maybe so. I don't know. Equally, as we spoke about this morning, Derek, when you look at the way that Clement started, when you look at his promise, you totally understand that the shout that if you look at that front 6, given that Cortez is young, McCausland is young, Matondo still, I think, in football in terms is young and pretty inconsistent, does that have enough goals to go and win you the league title? And I don't think people can say with a certain yes that it can yet. And I think that's probably where the mixed emotions come in for a lot of people that are tuning in today and watching on deadline day.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we talk Rangers, we're going to bring up the squad depth chart in a minute, folks. But just talking about our appearance, Alexander says, I'd love to see Stevie in a collar and yellow tie. So there you go. Strange comment, Stevie's just rolling his eyes. RFC72 says, can't wait to dive into my pint of bleach after 11:30 when we've not signed a striker. Please don't do that, buddy. But certainly the mood is certainly one that Rangers fans not best pleased reinforcements haven't been added in that striking position. Before we bring up the depth chart, and we'll look at the squad in more detail and whether it is strong enough to fight on 3 fronts. This point, this is an interesting one, Stevie. I'll get your thoughts on it. Do you think the January window is too long? Should it be changed to a 3 to 4 day event and televised like the NFL draft? This is from McNee. It's pretty much it's a show busy thing, the transfer window now. I remember back in the day when there wasn't a window, a deadline as such. It's all pretty show busy now. But what about this idea, Stevie? Would you like to see this introduced?
It's too long for us when you're in the industry. I think Joshua would agree that it's too long for us chasing stories and links and countless rumours and all sorts of stuff. Should it be a 3-4 day event? Okay, it would certainly mask the disappointment when you get a kind of anticlimactic day like today. So I'm not sure. I really don't know. Probably managers and teams would tell you that they need that length of time to try and negotiate and things like that. So I don't think it'll ever be changed, but I don't think that this has been a particularly good January window for teams. I don't see any big deals really.
No.
Anywhere really. So there's a lot of loans to buy and things like that. So it's an interesting reflection of where football is kind of all across Europe, that nobody's really spending at all. So it is what it is. Do I think this January window has been too long? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it has dragged a little bit. There's no doubt about it. Blair Ramsey gets in touch. Cheers, guys. Appreciate the hard work keeping Bears up to date. Sitting at work here in Las Vegas. Just rubbing it in there, Blair. I listen to you all daily on the drive into the office. Absolutely superb stuff. And Broxy loves the Rangers review. Says, Joshua, you're going to need a lot of charts to make it to the end of this stream. We're under an hour to go now until the transfer window closes. As yet, just to give you a bit of an update, folks, Oscar Cortez is signed and sealed. He is a Rangers player on loan until the end of the season. Rangers have an option to buy. He joins Mohamed Diamandi and Fabio Silva in the door. Departing Rangers, we fully expect Jose Cifuentes to complete his move away from the club. Adam Devine has joined Motherwell on loan until the end of the season. Earlier on in the window, of course, Sam Lammers departed for FC Utrecht, where he's currently tearing it up over there. The Utrecht fans are in love with Big Sam, so hopefully he can keep that up, and Utrecht can splash the cash and take him off Rangers' hands in the summertime. Right, Joshua, shall we get the squad chart up?
Yes, I should say I've kept Cifuentes in at the moment because obviously it's not official, but there we go. Just to call, I was actually watching today when I'm writing a piece for tomorrow about the transfer window overall, and I still think that when people think of the transfer window, it has peaked when you had Harry Redknapp kind of hanging out his car and giving you updates from the managerial, what would you say, hot seat itself. It's become, as Stevie says, it's become such an event now that the event is normally bigger than the deals, and it does get a bit anticlimactic. But anyway, we're going to try and give people some interesting discussion over the next hour or so. I'll hand over to you, Derek, but just to explain, Red is injured. If I've forgotten anyone, I'm sorry, it's been a long day, so don't shout at me too much. Yellow is new signings, players that have come in this window. As mentioned, Cifuentes not officially left the club yet. We expect him to. But he's still in there at the bottom of that kind of depth on the right central midfield position. Some players can play in different positions. Leon King has played at right back in the friendly games in January, Derek, and he spoke about that. I think it was in an interview last week about playing in different positions. So I've put him in there because I think Dujon Sterling will play more frequently in the midfield, and obviously some players can play across different positions as well. But yeah, over to you.
Right, where we'll start. Goalkeeper and defence, touched on that myself and Stevie. Not entirely overly concerned about that. Rangers get the best defensive record domestically. I think the problem lies in the forward areas. Just at the left back situation, Stevie, of course, a lot of noise regarding Redvan over the course of the window. I touched on this with Chris earlier. I'm quite pleased to see him still at Rangers. He's come into a bit of form, playing consistently well. I think Borna will contribute. There's no doubt about it. I think he may play in the European matches. But Ridvan, for you, could he be the long-term successor? Have you been won over by him?
I've certainly been encouraged by his performances. I think that's really fair. I think that this is the first time he's had a prolonged kind of period in the team. I think if my stats are right, it's the second time only that he's played more than 4 games in a bounce. So he's currently right into that. I think he's maybe at 6, 7, 8 now. So he's playing really well. What I like about him actually is he's very good in the air. How many times have we so far seen, they've really exploited him at the back post or whatever? It's not happened yet. And I think he's good in the tackle. I think he's very good at being... He kind of plays more inverted than Borna does. Like he runs more directly and more dynamically at a defence, but he's maybe not got the final bit that Borna has. So it's a wee bit of both, but Borna doesn't really go past the halfway line unless there's a clear opening, whereas Ridvan, I think, takes more chances. And he's been, I think, I wouldn't say key, but he's certainly been one of the main performers of Rangers' form in the last couple of months. So I think it is good that he's staying. I think that if we'd lost him for maybe 4 million, 3 million, what Galatasaray were maybe willing to pay, I think that if he has a really strong end to the season and then there's interest in him in the summer, I think we could be saying it's a lot more than our asking price at the moment if he's part of a title-winning team, for example. So, yeah, I'm really pleased that he was there. When you were talking about the defence and the goalie, obviously we don't need to talk too much about Handsome Jack because he is the number one. But the defence, I think, is fine. I've not got an issue with that. But I'm glad you highlighted Ridvan because he has been one of the kind of shining lights and deserves that. And rightfully, I've not been won over by him as yet. That problem of him being maybe not robust in things yet. But I like how he's kind of embracing it as well, Derek. And that he said last week, he wants to be here and stuff like that. If we keep getting the same attitude, keep getting him up and down the wing the way he has been, I think he'll prove to be quite a popular player for the supporters by the end of the season, no doubt.
Yeah, the midfield area, Joshua, I'm looking at that. It does look strong. Of course, Jack has just returned from injury. Whether he can stay clear of injury between now and the end of the season remains to be seen. Dujon Sterling, who knew that he was this athletic midfielder. I think that has been a masterstroke from Philip Clement, putting him into the middle of the park. Of course, he can play at full-back as well. But Sterling, Lundstram, Raskin has just come back from injury. Bailey Rice, the manager, thinks highly of him. I doubt he'll get much game time between now and the end of the season, but certainly one for the future. Diamandi is the one, though, that everyone, I'm sure, is excited at seeing play for Rangers over on that left-hand side predominantly. He is very versatile, so I can see him playing at a number of positions. But Rangers will be splashing a fair chunk of cash on him in the summertime as a loan with an obligation to buy from FC Nordsjælland. He's certainly that midfield area looks pretty strong to me.
Yeah, I think Diomande was speaking to a couple of people in a group chat about this tonight, Derek, and they were saying, I guess the argument is, look, did Rangers need to spend? Obviously, it's a loan to buy, as you say, but did Rangers need to prioritise that position? And it was maybe similar to the left-back situation to me, where you thought, okay, they can maybe get through until the end of the season and then look long-term. But I know you and Chris and Stevie as well have already spoken about recruitment overall. John Bennett's comments at the AGM, I thought, were so, I think, pretty honest. And listen, they had to be honest, but it showed that Rangers have had to change their approach. And it's almost like from January, they're kind of playing catch-up a bit. Now, there was good players brought in the summer. I think players like Sterling, players like Butland, players like Sima. And I think that Beale's recruitment understandably took a lot of a heavy hitting in the early months of the season. But Rangers did sign a lot of good players in isolation last summer. Their issue has been, as Clement would, he called it a crazy situation with the contracts, not only this season, but last season. You're looking at a situation where you had 5 players out of contract. Was it 5 out of contract last season? Maybe even more than that.
Kent Morelos, Arfield, McGregor,
Helander. And there might have been a couple more as well who weren't kind of key players. I can't remember off the top of my head.
You let us know in the comments, folks.
But the issue, I think the point is, Derek, that Clement has got. Sometimes we kind of forget, I think, what a good job Clement has done. When you think back to now, nothing's been won, but if you look at the expectations of this season compared to the game that you and I were talking about this morning, Derek, that 3-1 defeat at home to Aberdeen, I think Rangers' recruitment, their squad management has not been good for a number of years. Again, as Clement said at recent press conferences, they've then not been able to keep that player trading model consistent. They've then not been able to reinvest in it. Tellingly, with Coppin, they've wanted to go with someone who has expertise of other markets, and I think Cortez and Diomande especially fit into that bracket. PSV are not worlds away from Rangers financially. They're still stronger than Rangers financially, but they're not in the English Premier League. So the point being there with Diomande, I don't think Rangers' squad is in a position where if a player like him was presented, that deal was presented in January, they could say, do you know what, we're fine in central midfield, actually, we'll look elsewhere. I don't think there's many positions on the pitch where if a player of his quality and potential came up, and he's the one out of the three signings who I think I'm most excited about watching, because he also gives you, I think, a real natural balance on the left, which Rangers have not had really since, Kamara was a natural fit in the left, but obviously didn't really kick a ball for the last year of his Rangers career, maybe more. And Joe Rebo obviously left the summer before, and he was another player who was probably, he could play in the right, but he was playing in that left central midfield slot with a left foot as well. So Diomande, I think, hopefully will play a big role between now and the end of the season. He's played quite a lot of football for his age. And I agree with Stevie on Ridvan. It's the first time that he's had a concerted period of games, Derek. I think that if you put him in there and he's a more dynamic player, that doesn't only bring the benefit of him directly, but also the fact that those around him can move into different positions as well, which again, I think you'll see with Diomande. And I know we'll come to speak about Cortez and where he plays, but I think he factors into that as well. So glad that Ridvan stays, because also I think that if he continues the form that he's shown over the last month or so, and it's not been spectacular, but he's been good. I think a blanket good. He's been one of Rangers' better players. If he continues on that vein, I think he's going to be worth more than just recouping that fee that Rangers might have if at the start of the window they thought, you know what, he's not quite settled in, so let's move now. So he very much for me is Rangers' first choice left back between now and the end of the season, and interested to see if he can kick on from the first real run of games, as Stevie outlined, that he's had since moving here in the summer of 2022.
Yeah, Jack Delad gets in touch and says, because Cortez is not a right winger, he can play in both flanks, I believe, Joshua, can he? Yeah,
I mean, we can go into it, but I had to stick him on one side and the left is probably closer. I've just put a thread out about this on Twitter, and I've attached the scout report that I've done on him. A brief summary of him for me, because I know we'll go into the players more with Jonny maybe in the final hour, Derek, but I think he's a player who is maybe going to be better on the right in games where there's a little bit less space. The reason being that he's pretty right-footed, and I think he's got similarities to Sima, not necessarily in his playing style, but in that on the left, he'll be better when he plays into space. And we've seen with Sima, he's been really effective from that left-hand side position, but Sima's not a player who you're going to see receive by the touchline against a low block and take on 3-4 players and go through them. He's running over the top onto passes. He's becoming a second number 9. He's benefiting, I think, from Clement's faster style of play. You saw it with Desser's goal as well. Rangers are playing over the top of defences a lot more frequently. So I think you're going to see more goals from Cortez on the left. He's got real running power to take you up the pitch as well. He's a player who naturally wants to combine with players. You'll see him play 1-2s a lot. He wants to move into the centre of the pitch. But then on the right-hand side, why I think that might suit him at times against a deeper defence is that he can go both ways, because he can hit the byline and he is quick and he's got a really good delivery. He's taking set pieces, which again is always a good indicator. But then also, Derek, if he's playing with a full-back who can at times provide the width, and we've seen James Tavernier do a bit of both recently, move inside and then playing outside as well, then I think that allows him the opportunity to move inside, play in close combination with others, get more shots off. Because if you look at his dribbling numbers, he takes a lot more risks on the left, fewer risks on the right. He scores a lot more from the left, retains the ball a lot more on the right. And when he's played in teams who have tended to have more in the ball, notably not only in Colombia but playing for the national team, those appearances have tended to come off the right-hand side as well. So I agree with the comment that I think he's a right winger as well as a left winger. And I think, Derek, that will be, I don't know what Stevie thinks about this, but Rangers needed, if Rangers were only going to bring in one player in that position, they needed someone who could play two positions. Because at the moment, they really only have, yes, Scott Wright is back in the equation, but and we've seen what he can do, but we also know his limitations. I don't think he's going to go and be necessarily a standout for Rangers in the second half of the campaign. I think he's there to be a squad player and have his moments, which he has done, notably at Hampden. You needed someone who could fill in both those positions, because the risk with Cortez is you're bringing in a 20-year-old who you need to hit the ground running. Silva, I know we'll come on to talk about him as well, Derek, but again, the risk is there that when you look at that forward area, do you think that's enough to win you the league? And especially without Sima's goals. So you needed someone, I think, in Cortez who could play both positions. And as the comment says, he can play off the right, play off the left. I think domestically we might just see him play off the right more if it gives him that options of going both ways based on what we've seen in his career so far.
Yeah, let's get to Stevie shortly. First of all, Daz says, Joshua always has the best charts and staunch hair day and night legend, he says. And Robert Burns, a player that Rangers were linked with earlier in the window, says Million Manhuth has signed for Stoke for £3 million. He certainly has. Will that be one that got away? Who knows? But I think Rangers have got a player in Oscar Cortez who will hopefully hit the ground running. He simply has to, and that may begin against Livingston at the weekend on Ibrox. Stevie, apart from the obvious up top that we've discussed, that we'd like to see strengthened, what do you make of that squad that you can see at this moment in time? Is that a squad you feel confident can go on and win back the league title?
I think that my biggest issue has already been outlined, but I think that defensively, goalkeeper, midfield, I think, potentially that could be fine. My issue, Derek, is and that last kind of four positions that are highlighted there, there's a lack of consistent quality in there that worries me. That is that how many of them are capable of being like match-winning killer players consistently. I think that's my biggest issue. They're all capable of moments. Like every single one of them. Matondo can play and have moments. Cantwell is probably your best bet out of all of them, but is a little bit inconsistent when he has his moments. McCausland has done really well for a youngster. Scott Wright, I think Joshua explained it really well. Tom Lawrence is still getting up to speed, I feel. He's spoke about highly a lot. I'm not sure I've entirely seen it yet. And he's had a bad injury as well. So that's my problem. That's my issue. How many in there are going to get 10 goals that might be what we need by the end of the season? How many is really going to provide that killer moment where they can go and clinically take a chance? And I'm looking at it, and that has a concern for me. Cortez, we hope, and I agree with Joshua about bringing somebody that can play both sides. I get all that. And you're really putting a lot on him to be that difference maker, that kind of creator of chances and a taker of chances, because we know that the wingers need to pitch in as well. So listen, that's my concern. I think weirdly enough, and it's going to seem silly to say this, in the game where we beat Hibs 3-0 just last week, Joshua and I spoke about this, and I think that there's a real lack in our final third of people that are capable of being clinical and doing that, kind of decisive moment. I think we overthink things too much. I think we're nearly there and thereabouts. And that's my real issue with it. I see other teams in the league who've got players in there that do go and take that one chance. And that's where it concerns me. And I realise that we couldn't do it all in one transfer window. I totally appreciate that. And it's difficult for Philip Clement to inherit what he did and expect, to make 11 changes and things in January. That was never realistic. So he has to do it in stages. I get it, but if we're looking seriously at a team of where we want to go, I'm not too sure that there's many names on that final four position that you could completely say have the sustained and consistent quality that we need. And that's my biggest worry, Derek. Middleton, defends to middle, okay, but that bit worries me.
Stevie, can I be Derek Clark for a second and throw a question at you? What do you make of playing devil's advocate that hypothetically, right? So you've got Dessers, and we spoke about him after St Mirren, where it starts to be good since Clement came in. Felt like a big week. We asked him that question after the Hibs game. I still don't think he's necessarily going to be Rangers' long-term number 9, but I think we've seen enough to say he'll score goals domestically. There's still question marks about big games like the Old Firm because Rangers have not won a meaningful Old Firm in far too long. So naturally, those questions are going to arise. But do you think if Silva had signed today and Rangers had signed a striker later in the window, and again, you're looking at the noises around it that was here this time last month, we were thinking, okay, 2 good loan spells last season, ready to hit the ground running. Maybe he's not going to score loads domestically, but in European games or in bigger games, he can improve the technical quality up front and play in a slightly different way. I know there's been a narrative building about him not being a number 9, and I asked him the question in La Manga. I don't think it is that he's not a number 9. I think he's explaining that he's not a traditional number 9. Do you think the mood would be slightly different, Stevie, if Silva had been signed later in the window, or do you think that still people would have regardless just wanted someone who they knew was going to score 20 goals a season, which is obviously, it's easier said than done, because obviously Rangers have been trying to find that for a while, haven't they?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's an intriguing question, because would the online kind of social media side of it be better, and would there be more momentum? I think there is, absolutely. But my point in all this, it kind of goes back to what we said at the start. I'm not sure that Silva is that player, and it's not a negative towards Fabio Silva. But I think the position of many fans, without speaking for people, just what I've read and the feedback that they give the site and stuff, is that Fabio Silva maybe falls into a category where we had players like Todd Cantwell, Tom Lawrence that were capable of playing that. Now, you know as well as I do that if he bangs in a hat-trick against Livy on Saturday, then the context of the kind of opinion of him will completely change. And I get that, and that's the world that we live in at Rangers, where, you're only as good as your last touch of the ball kind of thing. So I understand that. But the issue that many people have got is that we lack a clinical edge up front. And having saw Silva, I don't think we've got that. And listen, Cyril Dessers is doing incredibly well. 9 goals in 18 games. I think 4 assists as well. And goal average is 0.72. And thank you for those stats that I got the other day. So, he's done great. But I think the issue with that is what happens if he gets injured? Who then comes in? And we're hanging a lot on him. And that's my biggest issue. Would it have been a different attitude then? Yeah. But listen, Joshua, see, at this moment in time, all the momentum I feel like is with Rangers. This is the way I feel about it. 2 big away victories, right? And everybody's really positive. There's a vibe in the support that's really good. And I think it was an ideal opportunity to go and strengthen that area, give the fans something, a goal scorer that somebody can get behind and really point to. And then all of a sudden, the momentum and the mood changes amongst what we're trying to do. And don't forget, and I don't like talking about them, this is a Rangers show, but our biggest rivals, their fan base aren't happy at the moment either. They're maybe one result away from, having a negative reaction over there also. And that doesn't fuel what we're trying to do, but we should be trying to create that momentum, that kind of cavalry charge when we've got a lot of home games coming up where we could really get everyone behind us and go for it. But at the moment, whether we like it or not, the majority of the support are going, I don't think we've done enough. I think we need a number 9. Now, that's the big thing for me. And I'm just a bit worried that situation is going to come back and haunt us. It doesn't mean that I don't think Cyril Dessers can get 20 goals this season. That's not the case. I just think that there's that little bit that worries me.
Yeah, no, Stevie, I genuinely agree. Because if you look at we wrote this after the last Old Firm game, and Derek and I spoke about this, the stat about the expected goals that Rangers had created, and again before people shouted me about expected goals, the point being that Rangers' issue in these Old Firm games has not so much been box to box. I thought the one, the 2-1 game was very similar to the 3-2 game under Michael Beale, where it's a lack of incision at one end and not having a difference maker at the other. And Jack Butland, Rangers have that now, and that's why holding on to him long term will be difficult, as much as I believe he's very happy at Rangers. But Rangers now have a difference maker in goals, which is important. Asked Conor Goldson about that at the start of the month, and he said, you just know he's going to turn up in big moments. And that's, I think, brilliant for a team, because you've got that position sorted. But I do agree with you. Look, if you're going into an Old Firm game and you think, who is going to be the player who, scores a big chance, scores them through one-on-one? And I'm not... A player in that squad might well be able to do that, Stevie. As you say, Fabio Silva might be able to. But when Rangers haven't won meaningful games in that fixtures in so long, when we've just had the evidence of that Old Firm game, and let's be real, Rangers are going to have to win one, probably two Old Firm games to win the league. And then the argument goes, well, look at what Clement's done so far. He's got the very best out of the players he's worked with if you just give him a little bit more. But then I guess on the other side, we do have to remember the January transfer window isn't ideal. The people you're trying to buy off can be, perhaps in a strong position. Rangers don't have unlimited money. Part of changing the transfer policy is that you can't just, I guess, go and spend massively over the odds on deadline day. So there's two sides to it. But in general, I do agree with you. I want to see more of Fabio Silva. I think he's a good player. It remains to be seen how many goals he's going to get. But in general, I do agree with you. If you look back at the most recent Old Firm game, I think the issue that compounded Rangers was quality in the final third. So you just got hope that come the end of the season, they don't look back on this and think, do you know what, there was more for us to be had, more for us to have last season if we just had a little bit more in the kind of the final stages of the pitch.
Well said, both of you. Thanks for taking over there for a little bit. Joshua, give me a little well-earned break. Stevie has to shoot off, but Stevie, thanks for joining us on this transfer special. It's great having you back on. How are Rangers getting on Saturday?
Well, we'll be on Friday morning, won't we? So we can.
Oh, we are.
We can discuss all that in length there.
Don't bother answering that then.
Hold on, Friday morning's tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm getting my days on. Well, we'll just discuss that in the morning, then I'll see everybody then.
Right, go and play some Robocop, but thanks for coming on, Stevie.
Good night, gentlemen. Cheers.
Night, Stevie.
Cheers.
There you go. And another substitution is Stevie departs. There we go. And Johnny McFarlane joins us. How's it going, Johnny?
Is that Josh booing me? What
no, I said there he is. I said there. I'd never be so rude.
Yeah, great to have the gang back together and all that.
Right, well, we'll get ready. I think we'll get rid of the squad chat just for. We might get it back up shortly. But Johnny, your thoughts as we whittle down to the transfer window slamming shut, as they say, in just under half an hour's time. Rangers exiting the January/February transfer window in a stronger position than they entered it.
Well, clearly they are, because they've signed 3 players. And in terms of outgoings, I don't think there's anyone that you would say Rangers have been weakened by losing, unless I'm going mad. So, yeah, I think they're stronger, but are they strong enough? That's the question. And for me, I think they still could have done with another striker. I think it's the thing that everyone's talking about. There's a number of ways that you could look at this. Perhaps Philippe Clement is thinking that Fabio Silva's got a lot more to his game than we've seen so far in terms of the guy who can go in and get the goals. It's still very early days in his tenure. Perhaps he's thinking, well, Roof could come back, Danilo could come back a little bit early, Sima could come back in 6 weeks, and then perhaps he'll be moved to the centre because you've got the new signing from tonight, whose name I've not heard the pronunciation of yet, so I'm not going to try it because that
Cortez.
Cortez
seems pretty simple, and of all the
I know, but I'm thinking, am I going to say is it going to be something like Cortz or something like that? Anyway, Cortez, okay. It's late. Come on, give me a break.
Tell me about it.
But perhaps he could play left, and Sima, once he gets back fit, could come into the centre. I don't know. I don't know what Clement's thinking. If it had been me, I would have still liked to have seen the club push the boat out and bring in another striker. I've been absolutely, consistent on here when I've been on, suggesting that Shankland would have been the perfect signing for Rangers. I get it would have been difficult. I get that Hearts would have wanted a fair bit of cash. But I think there was a deal there to be done if money was prepared to be spent. But ultimately, guys, and this is the thing that's fairly obvious, Rangers haven't spent any money in this window. The loan deal that's come in terms of Silva is obviously going to cost them in terms of wages. And the same with the other two players, but ultimately they're all going to be deals that may be activated in the summer. They're not getting activated right now. And like every other club in Europe, Rangers are skirting around the edges of trying to make sure that they don't overstep the mark when it comes to FFP. And given that no one moved and they weren't able to activate a deal for a left back, Ridvan Yilmaz wasn't allowed to leave. That could have freed up money that could have been spent somewhere. We literally don't know, and it could have been that was what they were planning to do. Now, I think it's interesting that overall, it's not been a very active window, just full stop. There's not been that much spent down south either. I think there's always a lot of fanfare. We know Sky Sports make a big deal out of it. The Athletic make a big deal out of it. But I don't think there's been anything that's knocked your block off in terms of signings. I noticed Spurs had signed a guy for £10 million there from Scandinavia, and there was a fair bit of fanfare about that because there'd been so little in terms of going down this window. So you've got to look at Rangers and are they improved? And I think they are. We don't know how good these three guys are until we see them settle in. But I don't think Celtic have improved too much. Adam Ida, not seen anything to suggest to me.
They're not enamoured by that, the fans, are they? I don't think I would be.
They don't seem to be at all. Now, listen, he could come in and be a brilliant player, Derek. But the fact is that I don't think there's anything in his record that suggests that he will be able to do that. And ultimately, people say, why are you talking about Celtic? But it's just because Rangers and Celtic are going up against each other in this title race. So however Rangers strengthen is in context of also what Celtic do. So I still think, as I've said for quite a long time, Rangers are going to win this league. But I do think there's a danger, as other people have already said on this video, if there's injuries, I think it's going to be quite tight, and Philippe Clement's going to have to come up with some quite creative solutions to the problems that he's going to have if that happens, because there's a rather large amount of players out with injuries. If you think of Sima, Danilo, Roof, that's a fair bit of firepower.
Yeah. I'm concerned as well. There's no doubt about it. Let's get to a few of the comments. Robert Burns, first of all, says, whoever gifted the channel membership, thanks. It's Fruit Pastel God, Robert, who kindly donated those memberships earlier on in the show. It seems like a lifetime ago now when we kicked things off, myself and Chris. And Robert Burns with a suggestion for you, Joshua. Please do a piece on the physics of how a window that gradually closes over a month can possibly slam shut. That is a piece I'm sure we'll be working on in the coming days. One to look forward to, Robert. World's greatest DJs. This is not something we've discussed on the show this evening. Apologies if this has been asked already. Can we still bring in a free agent? Rangers and any club can. And I've been looking at free agents at this moment in time. Some big names on there. I'll just give you a rundown of some, Joshua, before coming to.
Josh is going to have a meltdown there.
Derek, before we do this, is there another sub for this, or do I have to sit through the free agent list?
Let me just rattle through some names here. David De Gea.
I think Rangers are finding goals, aren't they? But yeah, he's a good player.
Here's one that was brought up in the show. I think it was last week. Jesse Lingard. Is he done?
Huge wages, Derek.
Yeah.
I mean, he's out of the game for a reason. He'd take a long time to get back fit. I don't think Rangers are needing upgrades in midfield at the moment.
Yeah, other ones that stand out. Anwar El Ghazi. In terms of centre forwards, there's a boy, Colombia, Joseph Martinez.
He's a good player.
Venezuelan yet.
He's a very good player, and he was excellent a couple of seasons back in the MLS, but we've seen quite a few players now come to Scotland and struggle from the MLS, so I don't know if there's some sort of problem between the pace of the league here and the pace over there in America.
Yeah, there's other South Americans there. There's the Ivory Coast player, Aki Loba, Diego Rubio, a centre forward, Gustavo Bau as well, Argentinian player, 33 years of age. Can't say I know much about those guys. Santi Mina's a Spanish centre forward that's a free agent as well. Diego Costa, Joshua.
That'll be fun. That'll be fun. I'm surprised. Amazed he's still going. He was at Wolves a couple of years ago, was he?
What age is Diego Costa now? 36.
No, was it Wolves last? Was it Wolves he joined last season? A short-term deal.
I think it was a couple of seasons ago, but maybe it was only a season ago. I don't know. He was a very good striker. He's pretty old now. Fabio
35.
Silva would probably be upset to see a
35
Wolves
looks like
striker.
55, I've got to say.
Yeah, he's looked 35 for a long time,
Yeah.
hasn't he? So, yeah, but that would be fun. I'll give you that. That would be fun.
Not in an Old Firm game, because he'd be guaranteed to get sent off.
Yeah, after about 20 seconds. No, he was at Wolves last season. He was at Botafogo over there in his native Brazil. So without a club at this moment in time, he would certainly be box office. That's for sure. Alan Stewart says Morelos on steroids. Yeah, absolutely. I was a big fan of Diego Costa. I thought he was sensational when he was at Chelsea. He was something else. I can't see Rangers going into that dipping into that market, Johnny. I think that they'll just go with who they've got. The onus then will be on the likes we just touched on there, Cyril Dessers, to steer clear of injury and continue in that rich vein of form that he's in. Fabio Silva needs a goal. I'd love him to get on the score sheet against Livingston. I think the longer that goes on, then it will become difficult for him. I think he will contribute between now and the end of the season. Oscar Cortez, we're told, is ice cold in the box, according to that Lons podcast that I spoke to earlier on in the week, and he knows his way to goal. So those are the guys that you're looking at to provide you with the goals. But in terms of free agents, I don't think it'll be something that Rangers would look at, or would they?
I don't think so, Derek. I think the days of Rangers playing Championship manager are over.
Yeah.
We've got professionals in now. Don't think Niels Coppin built that PSV team that's not been beaten all season because he was buggering about in the free transfer market looking for 35-year-old strikers. I think you can see from the profile of these guys that, you know, they're trying to do the right thing over the long term. It's proper team building that's going on here now. So I don't think so. And the problem with these free agents, you're mentioning players like Lingard. You know, these are guys. De Gea's the same. You know, they've not been in professional football now for what is the best part of 7 or 8 months.
Yeah.
And you know yourself, Derek, if you have that period out, we've seen it so many times with players, unfortunately, at Rangers who've been injured. They come back and they're not the same. It takes 2-3 months to get going. You need to get used to the rigors of top level football again. And it takes time, so I don't think it'd be a good idea to go and get these kind of free agents at all. I think Clement, and it'll be interesting to hear what he says tomorrow, but I think Clement must feel like he's got Rangers in a reasonably good shape for what he wants to do for the season ahead. Because, listen, we all thought the striker would be the number one priority, and he's not done that. And he's had money to spend outside of Silva, and he's gone and got Diamande and Cortez. And, you know, yes, they're loans. Yes, they're deals that will be potentially activated in the summer. But, you know, he was able to go out and get a striker if he wanted one. I'm not suggesting that he would be able to spend the kind of money that would have necessarily been able to dislodge Lon Shankland from Hearts, for example. What I would say is, I know there's been quite a lot of upset amongst the fans. I've seen it already on Twitter. I mean, the people at the club are saying they're happy, and I think there's a feeling that the fans will be happy when they see these guys in action. You know, there's a suggestion and a feeling from within the club that they've signed some really good players, and they've been able to do it in a really, really difficult window. So it's interesting. There's a kind of disconnect, but I certainly think Rangers have had a better window than Celtic, and that's the most important thing.
I'm surprised at Celtic. I can understand why there's a bit of unrest there, because I expected them to go big in the January window and really get some quality in, and it doesn't appear to have been the case. I mean, the boys that came in might hit the ground running, but it remains to be seen. BMAC with a point here. He says, I know this is a bit of a ridiculous question, but how long is Roof expected to be out for? Who knows, Joshua, but I think... What's that?
The manager was asked about that, and he was indefinite.
Yes. So that tells you all you need to know.
A while.
It's going to be a while, and he made that clear. And I think Rangers will want to keep it indefinite because they won't want pressure on Kemar Roof trying to meet a deadline. Because if Rangers turn around and say he's back in March, everybody will be like, where's Kemar Roof in March?
Exactly.
And it becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy and a psychological problem for the player. So I think they're wise just to keep that under wraps. I don't think you can count on Kemar Roof given his injury problems over the last couple of years. I feel really bad for him. I sat down with Kemar Roof at the start of the season, and he was incredibly positive, and really, really felt like he'd finally got on top of his injury issues, and it was clear how much that has been a difficult period for him personally. No one wants to play more than Kemar Roof and get a run of games and get back doing what he does best. So I feel really bad for Kemar personally, because I think he's actually, he is a good guy, and it was really likeable. Spent 20 minutes with him talking to him at the start of the season, and he really, really did seem to think that he was in right good shape and he would be fine, but he's not been in, and I think as we all know, that's a disaster for Rangers, because a fit Kemar Roof who gets a run of 35 games is going to score a ton of goals.
Yeah, I wonder where he'll go after Rangers. Whether he'll just decide enough's enough, perhaps, in call time in his career. Who knows? But don't expect to see him anytime soon, folks. This was an interesting point that I flagged a little earlier on. Tom says, gents, do you think we'll have much left to spend in the summer with these loan-to-buy deals? We know that Mohamed Diamandi will cost in the region of £4.5 million. It remains to be seen how much Oscar Cortez will cost. I know that €4 million was what Lons paid to get him in the summertime. I'd imagine they want to recoup much of that fee. I guess it will depend how well he performs at Rangers, how much they will command. Remains to be seen if Rangers will reach an agreement with Brighton for Abdallah Sima. Fabio Silva, you can forget it, because Rangers won't be in shopping for a player of that calibre in the summertime. But I think they're gambling here a little bit on possibly, winning the league and the Champions League riches that come with that, Joshua.
I think, as Johnny says, there's squad building there. It's not for so long. I think Rangers have been moving the recruitment manager to manager and haven't had that recruitment expert. Recruitment is a full-time job now, and Rangers, again, to go back to what John Bennett said at the AGM, I thought was a real acknowledgement of why Rangers needed to change tack, and it's quite a hands-up moment. I think a board probably have, once they made, once a summer like last summer happens in the start of the season, they've got really one chance to get it right. And so far with Clement, I think everything looks like he's going to be a good Rangers manager, and it's telling that they've went, as again Bennett said at the AGM, that they've tried to go for a recruitment specialist, and I think that's what you see with these two signings. Can we speak about Fabio Silva, Derek? Because I think just on Johnny's topic of Clement and number 9, I think Clement will think he has a number 9. He wanted Fabio Silva. We've not seen much of him. Now I agree, as Stevie was just speaking about, when Silva describes his game, he's not someone who comes on and says, I only want to be in the box, I only want to score goals. But equally, I think Clement will see him as the one who's going to compete with Dessers. Rangers have signed a number 9. You can argue whether they should have signed a different type of number 9. The next couple of months will show us whether that's the case or not. I think Stevie makes a good argument, and as I outlined about 20 minutes ago, again, I think that Old Firm game recently just compounded the overall argument of why Rangers have lacked incisive players in the final third, especially in that fixture, which, of course, as we all know, is the fixture that really matters. But I asked Fabio Silva this in Elamanga, what type of player are you? How do you see yourself? And he said, I'm not a really, really number 9 because I don't like to be static in the box. I like to move, change positions with other players. I don't like to stay in the box and only be a number 9. I don't know why he's repeating himself, but I think what he's trying to reiterate is that he's not kind of a classic number 9. I like to change positions, have connections with players, play 1-2s and move deep. And I'm a dynamic player. I like to change my position during the game. Wolves spent a lot of money on this player. That doesn't mean anything, we know. But they spent that money on him as a number 9. Cyril Dessers' form, I think Rangers are banking a lot on it. Cortez hitting the ground running, I think they're banking a lot on it. We've seen Clement get the best out of players so far. If you're looking at the moment, Cortez, McCausland, Wright, and Matondo being your 4 wide options. Clement sounded reasonably upbeat about the Sima injury, which maybe suggests he'll be back sooner rather than later. And as Johnny says, maybe he can then go and play through the middle. Again, he's hoping that Dessers continues in this vein of form. So I agree with the principle that Rangers probably did need another goal scorer. But I also think that, and again, we outlined this in the piece, the piece kind of inside the deal when Silva arrived. This was a player that Clement really wanted once the possibility was raised as well, and he felt aligned with his style of football.
Specifically, if you listen to Clement speak about football, he'll speak a lot about, I can't remember the word, but effectively dynamic movement between strikers, where what you saw a lot with Danilo and Sima. I think the goal Sima scored at Hearts away in that 1-0 win, where it's about a number 9 maybe occupying different positions and allowing then a winger to become the forwards in that phase of play. So, yeah, to reiterate a point, I still think it's a completely fair point that Rangers needed more goals. They probably needed an out-and-out goal scorer. They're not easy to get. They're clearly long-term squad building and banking on Clement continuing to get the best out of individuals. But I still do think the Rangers have signed a number 9 this window, maybe a specific type of number 9. And yes, Fabio Silva probably needs a goal early on, but we've not really seen much of him yet. So I just want to wait and see a little bit more of him to kind of ascertain what type of player he's going to be, and yeah, I guess see how much of a part he's going to play between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, that's fair. I have my doubts he'll get a lot of goals. I think he will contribute, but whether he's got that predatory instincts in front of goal, I remain to be convinced. I know PSV did well with him last season, hence why Niels Koppen, who was there at the time, has beat a number of clubs to win the race for his signature on loan. So, yeah, intrigued to see how he gets on. I think it would help him a lot if he finds the back of the net against Livingston at the weekend and gets off to gets his goal scoring account off and running. I'm interested to see Diamande and Cortez also. Hopefully we'll see them at some point on Saturday as well. This is a question I wanted to pose to you, Jonny. Myself and Joshua were on the members Q&A earlier, and I was asking Chris the question as well about the European squad. Rangers have until midnight to submit any changes to that European squad for the Europa League, the last 16, and hopefully many more games after that. Who misses out, really? No Redvan in the original squad. There was no Leon Balogun in there. There's a number of injuries now to contend with. It's a puzzle for the manager to solve this one. One of the new signings, will there be one that misses out, perhaps?
You need Silva in. He's the first one on
Yes.
the team sheet because you need 2 strikers.
Agreed.
Then you start thinking to yourself, let's look at the balance of this squad. What do we need in Europe? What's the number 1 weapon in Europe for any team? Pace, right? Sima's out. Is Matondo in the squad?
Yeah.
He is in the squad, so that gives you some pace. So you ask yourself, Sima's only out for 6 weeks to 8 weeks. Matondo is there. Do you need Cortez? Probably not. So you gamble that you don't need Cortez. Then you put in Diamande. He's got to go in, given the profile. The midfield's so important. I think he can be a big player, given his skill set in European games. And then I think the last thing is you go for Ridvan. If there's any doubt about Matondo or how long Sima's going back, I think pace is so important in Europe. You might want to just go with Borna, knowing that Ben Davies is there that can fill in at the left back if it's needed. But I would go with Yilmaz, Diamande, and Silva.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point as well that Jonny, that Barisic. I think Barisic would. If I had to pick between playing Barisic and Ridvan in one competition each, I would pick Barisic in Europe and Ridvan domestically. I'd pick Barisic and Davies in Europe and Ridvan and Balogun sort of domestically, because I think that the former, the latter 2 centre backs just can deal with the physical challenge more, and whereas the game is on the ground more, which I think suits Davies. I think his game against Sparta Prague at home, I thought he was maybe Rangers' best player that night, because apart from Danilo, because he was just able to read the game in a way that in Scotland it's going to be a lot more physical. So I agree with that, but it's a similar issue to the one that Rangers had at the start of the season. But obviously, I'm sure Clement will wish that he was able to make that choice from the start, because now he's trying to work with moving pieces, isn't he?
Tell me if I'm wrong, but the big problem with this, the reason that this is an issue in the first place, is because Rangers don't have enough squad-grown players, homegrown players.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
This is kind of not well known, and I'm not 100% sure of the actual facts. I need to look online, but I'm pretty sure that they've only got. Am I right in saying 22 as opposed to 26? Because the spaces that should be for homegrown, if you can't put a homegrown player in there, then you can't fill them. So Josh was talking earlier about Rangers now being squad building properly. I've talked about it as well. This is the results when you're not squad building properly. It's actually, it deserves criticism. It's preposterous that the club have got themselves in a situation where they've not been thinking about buying homegrown players like a Lewis Ferguson for this reason alone. It should be part of their thinking. So it's going to have to be something that Clement is thinking about for the summer. There will have to be Scottish players come in, or players that are genuinely and legitimately brought through from the academy to become first team players, because this issue is going to be a problem next year as well if it's not sorted out. And certainly the players that have come in potentially full time in the summer but now on loan, they're not going to fit that criteria either.
Yeah, I'd like to see more Scots in the squad. I think there is a distinct lack of homegrown players in there. Just on Cortez, incidentally, I wonder, part of the negotiations to entice him to Rangers, I'm sure he'd be looking forward to playing in Europe. So I don't imagine he'd be best pleased at being told that he's not able to take part in the Europa League. But who knows what's going on behind the scenes? We'll soon find out what that European squad will look like. Of course, that midnight deadline for Rangers to submit that squad. There's some interesting points that was being raised here. This one, a few people were commenting on earlier on in programme. Alan Stewart says, seen a few comments on Lovelace, but no answers. Can you not find out in the next presser, Derek? Not too sure if the manager has been asked about Zach Lovelace. I remember just up until the New Year period, he posted an Instagram picture that he was back on the pitch again, a picture of his boots. We've not seen him. I'm not too sure. Joshua, you were in La Manga. Was he there?
Didn't see him. I think it was a hamstring tear, was it? I think, Derek. So, and I think January was what David McCallum said. So you'd expect soon, and he does come into the equation because he was the one who started ahead of Ross McCausland actually in Stephen Davis' final interim game in charge away at St Mirren, wasn't it? So it'll be interesting to see where he actually fits into Clement team, because I don't think he played as a narrow winger that day. I don't think he's an out-and-out winger that would suit playing on the right or the left. Maybe the left in Clement's system, but certainly I'd be surprised if he plays on the right. But yeah, he's, I guess, an important consideration as well, because he's someone who Rangers have high hopes for. Just depends if he is seen as someone who can play that number 9 role, or maybe someone who slots into one of the 3 positions behind the striker.
I'm not sure what his contract situation is, Derek. And
I've heard reports that he's free to leave in the summer. Johnny, is that?
I've heard the same, but I've not had it confirmed by anyone. But what I would say is, Philippe Clement was asked at a presser that I was at directly, "What are you making of the youth academy? What do you think of the players that are there?" And he said Ross McCausland is the only one that he was going to take. He was the only one ready. So now, listen, Lovelace has been injured. So perhaps when he said that, he was talking about players that are available for that game. But I think I wouldn't be hanging my hat on Lovelace coming back in and being a regular in this team. I'm not sure that'll happen.
Yeah, he's a kid, and whether he has got a long-term future at Rangers remains to be seen. It's highly unfortunate to get injured at just the worst time possible. He looked bright in that game at St Mirren, of course. Set up the goal, the lead up to the goal, the penalty that was awarded for him following the VAR check. And then just as the manager was coming in, he wasn't available. So I feel for the lad. There was an interesting point that was raised, just going back to potential talent as Rangers should be identifying closer to home. You mentioned there Lewis Ferguson, Johnny. I don't think there'd be many disagreeing with you that Rangers really should have been looking to bring him into the club at some point. Ryan Stewart has suggested 3 names that Rangers should be looking at in the summertime. He says McKenna, Barron and Shankland, all no-brainers for the summer as homegrown players. What's your feeling on all 3? I know that Connor Barron partly attracting attention from a club down south for the name escapes me, but Scott McKenna.
Swansea it was, Derek. Swansea, I think.
Yes. Scott McKenna, we're told, is Nottingham Forest days are numbered. But I don't think, as it stands, I've not checked, but he's still a Nottingham Forest player. Those three players, though, Johnny, are they Rangers standard, Rangers class?
Scott McKenna, I'm not sure about, to be honest. I think if you're talking about a guy who's going to come in and compete for a place, left-sided centre half, Scottish, I'm fine with it. I don't necessarily think he's a brilliant player, but I don't think he'd let anyone down. Connor Barron, I think he shows up in data in the same way that perhaps Glenn Kamara did. You know, just sort of standing out in a team that doesn't necessarily play the kind of football that suits his game. And whenever I've seen him, he's an elegant, gifted player. And you wonder if he was transposited into a side that had a few more elegant, gifted players around about him, that you would see a distinct improvement. What he is, he's a wonderful user of the ball. So I think in a Rangers team, he would look a lot better than in Barry Robson's hoofball Aberdeen side. Very difficult for him to kind of make a case for himself as an elegant passing player in a team that was really about sort of aggressive 4-4-2 up and at him, you know, style football. As for Shankland, of course, I just think that's an obvious one. And if Rangers can do that deal in the summer, then for me they should do. Shankland can come in and be a Chris Boyd for 4 or 5 years, no problem at all in this league, and I think easily get 150 goals for Rangers over that period, because, well, maybe that's an exaggeration, 150, but 100 goals. I'm getting ahead of myself there.
It should have been signed. For me, he should have been signed when he was back. When Rangers come up through the leagues, there was a point when he was scoring goals for fun. I think it was at Ayr. Rangers should have acquired him then. I'm concerned if maybe, and for him as well, I'm sure he's a Rangers man, of course, that he's just missed the boat with regards to a move to Ibrox. So thanks to everyone for telling me that Scott McKenna signed for FC Copenhagen on loan until the end of the season, which is...
He's out of contract at the end of the season, though, Derek.
Yeah. So whether he's... I'm sure it'll be a debate for the summertime. He'll be looking to play games with an eye on appearing for Scotland in the Euros in Germany in the summer. Huge thanks to M. Tunes, who's donated to the channel. Thank you very much for that, buddy. He says, what about Jonny Yefeko? Every time I've seen him, I think he's been solid. Joshua, Jonny Yefeko, we've seen him, I think, recently at the Copenhagen game, the friendly he was playing.
Struggled at corners, to be fair, but he's not alone in the Rangers team at the moment with that in mind. But Derek, you and I were speaking about toxic atmospheres at Ibrox earlier this year, and had Jonny Yefeko not cleared the ball off the line against Morton in the final minute of a League Cup win, 2-1 League Cup win, it was him off the line, wasn't it? I'm not making that up. It seems someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it was.
It wasn't off the line. I think it was a goal-saving tackle. Sorry. Yeah. Then that, I think that might have topped it all. But he's had a couple of good games. I think when he's come through, you're right. He did struggle in that friendly when he came off the bench against Copenhagen when he was marking up at the front post. But again, I think as Johnny's outlining with the Clement's comments, it's such a big leap from being a promising player and coming on in a friendly and playing well to doing what I think Ross McCausland has done. And Ross McCausland, you know, he's spoken himself about being self-critical about watching games back. I'm sure when he watched the Old Firm game back, he would have thought, you know, he made the wrong decision in that moment. He spoke about it after the who was it he came on against Aris when he came on and scored the goal and he had another opportunity. Obviously, that's going to happen when a young player is going to make, when it is going to come through, especially at a club like Rangers where there's so much pressure and expectation. But it's so difficult, I think, to go from being a promising young player and doing it over a couple of games to then go and to do what Ross McCausland has done, which is, yes, not be completely perfect, but consistently start for Rangers and make that jump, having not played men's football before. So I think that's the challenge for all youth players coming through. And I think McCausland, you know, having heard about Lowry for years and years, and with him, for various reasons, not having been able to make that step into the first team, McCausland, because the circumstances have aligned, and that's another important point. Would McCausland have broken into the Rangers team had Clement not come in? I don't think so, because the position he plays in, the position he specialises in, did not really feature in the former manager's plans. He didn't really play with wide players starting in wide positions. So I think it's circumstance, but also about taking your chance over a consistent period of time. And as Jonny outlined with the academy comments, at the moment it looks like McCausland is the only player who Clement's going to call upon at the moment to play a consistent amount of games. But yeah, I guess we'll see, depending on injuries, whether or not an opportunity comes for Yefeko at some point throughout the remainder of the season.
Yeah, McCausland's been excellent, incidentally. I've been hugely impressed by him. What a season he's having. Right, folks, the transfer window is now closed. The window has slammed shut. So just to update you on the incomings at Rangers, Fabio Silva, Mohamed Diamande, and tonight Rangers confirmed the loan signing of Oscar Cortez. They do have the right to buy the Colombian in the summer. So we're all excited about seeing, especially two. We've seen Fabio Silva for a little bit. Want to see more, and Mohamed and Oscar as well. Hopefully we'll see a bit of them at the weekend. We'll hear what the manager has got to say about them when he conducts his pre-match press conference tomorrow at 1:30. You can see everything he says on the YouTube channel, as always, and you can read everything he has to say on the Rangers Review website. Also, nice kind words here from Stuart Douglas. He gets in touch. Derek, Chris, Stevie, Joshua, Jonny, thanks for keeping us entertained for the last 3 hours. Well, thank you, Stuart, for tuning in. And thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in, incidentally. Huge numbers on the show tonight, which is great, considering there's not been a lot to talk about. But hey-ho, we've managed to almost make it to 3 hours. Jonny, in terms of outgoings, there was a comment Lewis said, is Cifuentes is still expected to leave on loan. He is. We expect that move to go through. The Brazilian transfer window doesn't close until next month, but he's looking to move over to Cruzeiro, which I think would be a good move for him. Real unfortunate that it's not quite worked out. He was supposed to take Rangers to that new level, but for whatever reason, Jonny, it's not quite worked. Can you put your finger on why? Would you be disappointed at seeing him go?
No, I couldn't really get my head around, beyond the sort of physicality of the player, exactly what it was that had been seen in him, because I kept seeing this sort of sense of tactical unsophistication about him. He was rampaging all over the place, not really being able to sit in that midfield holding position, which is I thought he'd be able to do that based on his profile, but he looked like a player that was just desperate always to get forward and be an agent of chaos. But I just don't know if he was good enough on the ball for Rangers as well, giving away short passes.
Yeah.
And in Scottish football, a big, powerful guy like that, he never really imposed himself physically either. So there was maybe a couple of games, I think it was the second half against Aberdeen, where he was all right. But generally, I just don't think he added much. And certainly in terms of Michael Beale saying that he thought he was going to be a game changer, I just didn't see any evidence of that whatsoever. I think, to be fair, most of the signings now are looking okay from the summer, with the exception of Cifuentes and Lammers. So I think if you can get those two out, what you're left with is a reasonable core. I'm still not convinced by Dessers. I'm not going to be convinced by Cyril Dessers, but
someone said in the show earlier he might do a reverse Negri. If he goes on to hit 20 plus goals, Jonny, will you change your mind on him?
No, because I don't like him as a football player. Okay. The certain players that they're just not for me. And Cyril Dessers, for me, he's just too inconsistent. For me, he's the kind of player that will get a manager sack. You play well 1 minute, then you have 10 bad minutes, and then those 10 minutes will encourage another 20 bad minutes, and then you sub him off, and then you put him on the next game. And listen, he's a lovely big guy, and I hope he rams these words down my throat, because he's never been anything less than a ray of light in the press conference room, and Josh will testify to that too.
Yeah. Nice man.
I'm just not convinced he's good enough to be a Rangers number 9, but he is effective and he has scored goals. And if you look at his numbers, Josh will tell you, look at his numbers suggest that since Clement has come in, he's really come on again. But I don't think he passes the eye test. Is the way I would put it. I don't think his hold up play is good enough. I don't think he's quick enough and behind. He has a lot of elements to his game where he's just not quite good enough.
Yeah,
and he's a kind of all rounder, but not a very good all rounder. But
yeah. I remember when he signed in the summer. I've said this before. We had Johan Brinkel, the Feyenoord podcast, and we were speaking about Dessers, and that's exactly what he says. He's not a world class striker, but he's good at certain things. He had the first half of the season he was pretty poor, and then they came back from the winter break and he scored goals for fun. Went on a great scoring run, fired them to the Conference League final. So you do wonder maybe if history will repeat itself, but he's on a good run of form at the moment, and the onus is on him. I know you've said Fabio Silva will contribute, Joshua, but he's the main man going forward, Johnny. It has to be.
Well, listen, if he fires Rangers to a Europa League final, then I take it all back, every part of it back. So if we can get another year like Seville in terms of Europe, I'll hold my hands up. So you don't have to worry about that.
There you go, Cyril. If you're watching this, I'm sure you are. Then make Johnny eat his words. Just back to the squad list slightly. And you mentioned Lowry, Joshua. Point here, where is it? We touched on Lovelace, but Lowry. Interesting comments from the manager last week on Lowry's and Hearts obviously deciding to end his loan spell. We felt it was because he just wasn't getting much game time, and now it appears that he's got an injury. Philippe Clement not best pleased that he wasn't told the severity of said injury, and says it's now going to be difficult to send him back out on loan because he will be out for, I think it's an Abdallasima-esque timescale. So he says they'll make an assessment in the summertime, but it's going to be tough on Alex because he's not played many minutes. Again, like many of the injured players, you've got to feel for them. And what was a really big season for him. I remember when we were on, when he got that loan to Hearts, we're saying he has to succeed here or else his Rangers career is all but over. Is Lowry what do you see? How do you see this unfolding? Do you think if he gets back, will he get many minutes in a Rangers jersey, do you reckon?
It's a busy. Well, actually, it's not actually a busy area of the squad anymore. It has routinely been, but I guess depends where Silva plays. Yeah, it's just not quite worked. And again, you've got to remember, obviously, real difficulties off the pitch. I do think it's important to caveat these things at times because we forget that players are young and that they exist under a lot of pressure. Speaking about circumstance with Ross McCausland, I don't think simultaneously Lowry's had that circumstance / not been able to take it yet where he's had a run of games. He's a type of player that I just love watching, and I think a lot of people do, and that's so talented, and that's the reason why there's been so much pressure on him, because I think in a not dissimilar way to Campbell, he plays with a confidence and at times a bit of an arrogance, which is good. I think some type of players need that. I think if you're a creative player, you need to believe that you're better than other players on the pitch because you need to back your ability. But yeah, for whatever reason, it's not worked under different managers. I think clearly something that's been quite consistent with Lowry is that he's needed to improve his intensity off the ball. I just don't think in modern football you can get away with that. He had good moments of Hearts. I remember, I don't know if you saw the cross he played for the assist. I think it was Alan Forrest up at away at Dingwall. Didn't score directly in the Edinburgh Derby, but it was kind of a deflected goal, wasn't it? I think, unless I'm making that up, but it's been a long day. So he had some good moments, but for whatever reason, it's not just worked out. I think this summer does feel quite make or break because of his age. Derek signed that contract a couple of years ago now. So, the reason he's not on that list is just because I don't expect him to play. He's not been around, and the same with Lovelace. And also, if you put too many names on the list, no one can read it. So you've got to cut it at some point. Yeah. And just on Dessers as well, I kind of agree with Johnny in that sometimes you do watch Dessers still and you think, what is he bringing to the game? But you see the goal he scores. I think we spoke about this earlier, Derek. We've done 3 podcasts today, so it's hard to ascertain. But the goal he scored where he's running over the top against St Mirren, I don't think that's the type of goal Silva scores because he's not really playing on the shoulder. I think Dessers is someone, I remember he said after the game away at Livingston, it was a press conference and he scored that goal where it kind of trickled over, and I think still there's a lot of doubters then, as there probably still is now, but now he's had a song sung and it feels like the support have embraced him a bit more. And he said, I'm a striker who is better facing the goal. And I thought, really? Because you'd think, you can't run onto the ball. We've seen you offside so many times. I think he looks sharper. I think his movement looks better. He scored a lot of goals. He scored a lot of goals on the left-hand side. We have a piece on the website which goes into detail about his numbers and his goal scoring numbers as well. And I think that's his strength, his movement on the left-hand side of the pitch in particular, running in behind, but from distances that maybe suit him a little bit better. And I do think you've also got to say the mental toughness he's had to come back from the start of the season. He just, even the Dumbarton game, he keeps taking chances. In that first 20 minutes against Dumbarton, I think everyone was still, he hadn't had the song, and it still felt like people were still really wound up with him, as I'm sure will be the case when he misses his next chance. But he keeps taking chances. He didn't hide. He didn't fake an injury when he was going through that difficult period. And whatever his, however things end for him at Rangers, I think he has managed to turn it around into a positive from a negative, which, again, after some of those games in October, Derek, that felt like a very far way away. So similar to Feyenoord, he obviously has a mental toughness in games and game to game to help him keep taking chances. And he's going to have that over the next 4 months because, as you say, at the moment, he's Rangers' main man up there.
Yeah, Ali Quinn says the real Betis goal was Archie Gemmell stuff. I couldn't quite believe it, but was in the ground. Lucky enough to be in the ground. Johnny's shaking his head. Don't think it's quite Archie Gemmell stuff, I've got to say, but it was it surprised everyone in the stadium. But what a famous night that was over there in Spain. Alex Lowry, Johnny, does he have a Rangers future for you?
I don't think so. I broke the story that Alex Lowry was going back to Rangers from Hearts, and I knew at that point that he was not going back to be viewed by Clement. I think what people need to understand is Philippe Clement is a very exacting, deliberate individual.
Yeah,
and he knew about every single player at that club, and Alex Lowry is a player he'll know about. He'll know everything about him. And he'd already made the decision that Alex Lowry wasn't going to come back to be a major part of the first team squad, and that he was going to get sent out on loan again. I think Alex Lowry will end up for the rest of the season with the B team. I don't think he'll be involved too heavily with first team action. And let's be honest, a lot of fans really like Alex Lowry because it's that one of our own thing, but. Yeah. If you don't make it at Hearts, if you can't play at Hearts week in, week out, you will never make it at Rangers. And of course, as a young player, you can go and have a spell where, it doesn't go for you. And I'm not saying Alex Lowry's career at Rangers is over or anything like that because of his age, but time is ticking on for him.
Yeah.
And he needs to quickly realise that he has to grasp the metal on this and find a way to match his natural talent with work rate and really go somewhere where he's going to get a game and play week in, week out next season. I don't think this reputation that he has done him any good. It's not helped him. And I think it's been a really, really, really disappointing year because I fully expected Alex Lowry to go to Hearts and be a mainstay in their side. I really did.
He had to be, yeah. Yeah, he had to be. It hasn't worked for him. He's now injured for the foreseeable future. Clement didn't elaborate on what that injury was when he was quizzed on it in his press conference last week. But we won't be seeing him in action anytime soon. Before we wrap up, John McKean says, Derek's got the Duracell in tonight. Johnny needs some Energizer batteries. Other brands are available, of course. But it has been a long old shift this evening, kicking off at 9 p.m. We did have the announcement as soon as we kicked off when I was on with Chris that Oscar Cortez has signed that deal. That aside, it's been a relatively quiet day. I just get your thoughts, Johnny. Of course, there has been an outgoing confirmed just before Cortez was announced. Adam Devine heading out on loan to Motherwell. I said on many shows that I think it was the best for him to go out on loan and play games, very much like Alex Lowry, I guess. He's too good for the B team, not good enough for the first team. It has to be playing games. I think he'll do pretty well over there.
Really hope he does well because he's again, nice guy. I think you sat down with him, didn't you, at one of the previous training camps, Derek? So it was a good interview you did with him. And I think he's a talented young player as well. He's shown adaptability, played on the left, played on the right. But, again, I wasn't want to stick the boot into Alex Lowry there. I don't want to stick the boot into young Devine. But the fact is, we've got this weird mentality in Scotland where you're still a kid at 21. Where every other league in Europe at 21, you've played 150 games.
Well, Cortez is 28. How old is Diamandi? He's young as well, isn't he?
22.
22.
Yeah.
22.
You know, fundamentally, if you've not made it by the time you're 21, if you're not established yourself in first team football, you've missed out on a lot. And it's more difficult at Rangers, and even someone like Barry Ferguson was a bit older, I think, than normal when he eventually, you know, fully burst onto the scene as a first teamer. You know, it wasn't 17 or 18 that Barry became, you know, the main man. But I think sometimes we're a little bit like, oh, they're still a kid. Well, not really in football terms. Look at the Premier League. Look at...
I'm still saying Robbie McCrory's a kid, and he's, 25, 26?
Exactly.
Yeah. Has to be playing games. Yeah.
You know,
young goalkeeper Robbie McCrory. He's just gonna be called that when he's like 32, isn't he? Because he's always youngster Robbie McCrory. It just feels right. But Johnny's point is right. I think it's a fair point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just grumpy. That's all it is. It's right, but it's grumpy.
Yeah. Right, folks. I think huge thanks, incidentally, for everyone for interacting with the show tonight and for watching this marathon special. We do apologise we've never brought you any live transfers as they were happening, but I think we've did pretty well to reach almost 3 hours of Rangers chat. I will be on with Stevie tomorrow morning on the morning briefing. We hope you can join us.
You're back.
I'm back.
I'll be on as well, Derek. But Derek, before we close, can we just plug while we've got all these wonderful people on here? We've got, if you want to read about any of the new signings, we've got you covered, from scout reports on all the players. Chris has a great interview up about Cortez tonight, about his story, about why he was so highly rated in Colombia, why the move to France didn't work. We're going to have follow-up with multiple people who have been involved in Mohamed Diomande's journey. That's alongside your press conference coverage, your match coverage, exclusive interviews with James Tavernier at the start of the month, lots more like that. If you enjoy what we do, the best way to support us, keep these going, keep Derek's big light on and yellow tie on as well for next time, is subscribe to the website. We believe it's the best Rangers journalism that you'll find. We put a lot of work into it to hopefully make sure that you enjoy it. So after this, we'll have loads of coverage of the football, the stories that are unfolding, the tactics that are making the difference, all these types of things. So the link for that is in the comment section, and echo what Derek says. Thanks to everyone for joining, and thanks to Derek for being so energized for these 3 hours and having more energy than everyone else, despite the fact that he's been on there for the longest duration of all.
So somebody's saying I should just stay on for an all-nighter. Absolutely no chance of that happening, buddy. It's I'm in my bed.
Derek, just take the camera, take that laptop through, and just let people watch you sleeping.
Yeah, I think that's taking it a bit too far. I don't think anyone has to view that, but we will be back, folks. 9:30 tomorrow morning. Stevie will be back on. We'll discuss. We'll just pretty much everything will be discussed this evening, but we'll also look ahead to the game on Saturday. Of course, Rangers back in action against Livingston. Press conference day tomorrow as well. It keeps continuing, so we look forward to that. But thanks to everyone. Thanks to Johnny and to Joshua as well, and we'll speak to you tomorrow morning. Good night, everyone.